Yeah.
We are.
Mhm.
Thank you. Welcome to today's council meeting, Wednesday, 30th of April. And we have had the council prayer this morning in finance. I move apology for receiving apology from Councillor Brian Carter and a latest apology from Vicky Dorahiro, who is travelling flights at the moment, but will be here for most of the meeting. Would somebody like to so move, please? So moving Councillor Lambert and who's seconding? Thank you. Councillor Wong, take you. And just, would you like to introduce Carolyn, please?
Yes, certainly. So we welcome Carolyn MacArthur to our governance table. She's here supporting us in our governance function today from Wanganui District Council. So we're really appreciative to Wanganui District Council and Caro for supporting us with our meetings today. Kezia on leave.
And so with that, councillors, Carolyn might be used to who you are and our systems. So just please take your time and explanations. And I may stop from time to time. Carolyn, signal me, please, if you are getting behind. Thank you. We have two public forums. And the first public forum we have is from Jackie Cottrell. So forget the Dan on the screens. That will be Jackie coming live. Jackie, welcome to council.
Thank you, Andy.
And Jackie, you have 10 minutes, including question time. How you use those 10 minutes is up to you. And could you illustrate also at the start as to who you will be talking spokesman for? That would be useful. The time is yours, Jackie.
Okay, in relation to this, to the spokesperson, can you clarify that for me, Andy? What are you referring to there? Sorry.
So I'm just stopping the time. I won't start it until you're actually speaking. But as I understand it, you are a spokesperson for a group.
Yes,
Before we start, illustrate who you are speaking for.
Certainly. Okay, fantastic. Kia ora, councillors, and yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to address you today. And I am speaking on behalf of Rangitikei Guardians Incorporated. We are a community group dedicated to protecting the biodiversity, cultural heritage, and well-being of our district, particularly the Mōwhanga community and the Hihitahi Plateau. Today, we urge you to appeal the consent decision for the Huriwaka Wind Farm as outlined in section 3.7 of your meeting notes, and to retain your authority as elected representatives rather than delegating it to officers as proposed in section 3.2 of your notes. This is a defining moment for our district, and we need you, our councillors, to stand with us on this. Well, the Rangitikei Guardians Incorporated have sent a letter earlier this week, and I understand that you've all had an opportunity to read that. The Huriwaka Wind Farm proposed for the Hihitahi Plateau threatens irreparable harm to our environment, culture and community. As Rangitikei Guardians, we oppose this project for 4 critical reasons grounded in our commitment to the Mōwhanga community and the principles of the Resource Management Act 1991. First, the threat to biodiversity. The Hihitahi Plateau is a unique ecosystem within the Mōwhanga Ecological District, home to threatened species like the long-tailed bats and native falcons. The industrial scale of up to 60 wind turbines across 56 square kilometres risks destroying significant habitats, contravening Section 6C of the RMA, which mandates protection of such areas. This is not just an environmental loss, it's a loss of our natural heritage for future generations. Second, the proximity to Mōwhanga School. The wind farm's close location to the school raises serious concerns about noise, visual impacts, and the well-being of our children. Parents and educators fear disruptions to learning and the safety of tamariki in a place that should be a sanctuary. This project undermines the social well-being of our community, which you are duty-bound to protect under the Local Government Act 2002. Third, the cultural well-being of Mofongo. The plateau is more than land. It's a living connection to the identity and history of our community, particularly for Māori, whose relationships with ancestral lands and taonga are protected under Section 6E of the RMA. The industrial transformation of this landscape will sever these ties, eroding the cultural heart of Mofongo Village. Residents have fought this project since its days as Project Central Wind, and our opposition remains unwavering. And I'd like to mention that the Rangitikei Guardian group is continuing to grow in opposition to this proposal. Fourth, the threat to cultural and historic heritage. The Hihitahi Plateau is an outstanding natural landscape, recognised for its unmodified character and significance to Māori and the wider community. Its development violates Section 6B of the RMA, which requires protection from inappropriate use. The project's scale will introduce visual and noise discordance, degrading the amenity values cherished by residents as outlined in Section 7C. So we do acknowledge the need for renewable energy, but the RMA demands balance, and Section 7J supports renewable energy, but not at the expense of finite natural resources or ecosystem integrity, as emphasised in Section 7J and 7G and 7D. Alternative sites with lesser impacts exist, and approving this project without exploring them, we believe, is very short-sighted. Councillors, we insist you don't delegate your authority to officers as proposed in Section 3.2. The fast-track process may demand speed, but it cannot override your role as elected representatives. The Mofongo community trusts you to advocate for us, not to hand decisions to unelected staff. Delegation risks sidelining the voices of those most affected, undermining the trust and confidence noted as a strategic risk in Section 5.1 of your meeting notes. You have the power to appeal this consent decision under Section 3.7, and we urge you to use it. An appeal to the EPA will ensure a thorough review of the project's devastating impacts, giving our community the representation it deserves. The history of this project, previously Central Wind, adds urgency to our call. Past councillors set clear conditions that construction must proceed, yet delays and land banking have burdened Mofongo for decades, fostering anxiety and restricting land use. This uncertainty violates the RMA's ethics of stewardship and efficient resource use. We also note inaccuracies in the meeting agenda which cast doubt on its reliability and demand your scrutiny. So in closing, before I'm happy to take questions, we respectfully request 4 actions. The first one, to lodge an appeal against the Hurawaka Wind Farm consent with the EPA. The second one, to retain your authority and bring this matter to a full council meeting, rejecting the delegation proposed in Section 3.2. The third one, to reassess the project's alignment with the RMA and the Rangitikei District Plan, prioritising the Hihitahi Plateau's preservation. And the fourth one, to engage directly with the Mofongo community to understand the profound impact this project will have. Councillors, you're the voice of Mofongo Taipi and the Northern Rangitikei. The Hihitahi Plateau is a taonga and its protection rests in your hands. Please stand with us, appeal this decision and represent your constituents with the courage and commitment that we expect. Thank you. And yeah, I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Jackie. Questions from councillors? Councillor Lambert.
Yeah, just one question. You said there's more suitable sites available for this. Is that nearby to where the proposed sites are, or?
Potentially, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Dave Wilson, Dave's not on camera. He's just out of view. But
Hi, Dave.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Jackie. Jackie, one question under your information that you sent to us. It says here, request for action. Your opening line says, given the project's non-compliance with the RMA.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that statement come from?
Well, I've just outlined the areas that we believe that the proposal doesn't align with the RMA. I think I highlighted them all.
Yeah, I can see that there, but that is your opinion that it is non-compliant with the RMA, not a legal opinion.
That is our opinion as the Rangitikei Guardians Incorporated. Correct.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
a question from Councillor Loudon and a question from myself.
Hello, Yeah.
The previous application went through the Environment Court and was approved. Has anything changed from that approval to now as far as what you think is important to take action against this project again?
In terms of changes, I know we were opposed to it then, and yes, it was approved by the Environment Court, but it obviously didn't go ahead. No, I don't believe. Well, actually, yes, the wind turbines for this proposed project will be much higher. The original scope was, I think that the wind turbines would be 100 and maybe 30 or 40 meters, and now they're proposing that they will be up to 230 meters high, and there will be up to potentially 60 of them, which is a significant increase.
Thank you. Question from me, Jackie. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I was a commissioner on Central Wind Farm application back in 2010, whenever it was. This is a different application, but a similar site, and
Yeah.
a district plan has also changed. Would you see that I am conflicted in that process?
Potentially, I suppose, yes, Andy, but something I probably need further, wider understanding on.
Thank you. That's also the way that I see it as well.
Okay,
But I just want to be very transparent.
appreciate that.
Councillor Duncan.
My question, Jackie, you will be aware of, and I know this council has been aware of the fact that there potentially are at least one other, if not two other, wind installations that are looking to go into that area northeast of Taihape. Are you saying potentially they would be more appropriate? When you
no,
say that there are areas that could be more appropriate?
No, sorry, I'll clarify that. No, I'm not saying that there are other areas in this area that along the Taipi Napier Road that would be more appropriate. I was more thinking along Army Country, but yes, Councillor Duncan, there is discussion from friends and neighbours that there is potentially exploration of wind data from properties further up our road. So the significant risk that if this proposal from the Hurawaka Wind Farm proposal does go ahead, then it will open the floodgates to potentially our entire area, region, road, Taipi Napier Road, becoming just one large industrial wind farm, which would be completely devastating for the region for so many reasons. So we are significantly concerned, and we really would like your support on this.
Thank you, Jackie. That brings us to the end of our time. In fairness to other submitters,
Okay.
I thank you for your oral submission to this to council in public forum. It is something that will occur in discussions later. But thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate that. Thank you, councillors. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Just before we go to the next public forum, with regard to this item when it comes up, I've reflected on this. I'm potentially conflicted in this space. I feel as though I will be able to advise you in terms of process, but I will pass that item to chair. Thank you. We welcome to public forum Opai. Opai, can you hear us? Are you live? Can you light up your screen, please?
Can you see me?
Opai, the terms are the same in terms of public forum. You have 10 minutes, including question time. How you use that time is your call. Any questions about process before we kick the 10 minutes off?
No, I'm hoping to be able to say what I need to say in 5 minutes and allow the council to respond. I haven't timed how long it's going to take, but I'm ready to go.
What I might do is when you've got, if you get to 8 minutes and you're still speaking, I'll remind you that you've got 2 minutes left. So
Okay.
your time is yours. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, nā mihi o te ata kirungi kia hatu, e nō wana kirungi i te taumata, kaunihira o Rangitike. Tēnei anō ka mihi. He honore he kurori ki te atua, he maunga rongo kirungi ki tōna whenua, he whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Just want to do a little brief prayer first. Because in our customs, it goes, ko te amorangi ki mua, ko te hāpai o kimiri. We commit things to the spiritual realm, and hopefully that will manifest down onto the land. So that's my first acknowledgement. There's a greater force other than myself. I'm just here as a spokesman today on behalf of the ancestors. I want to start with our whakapapa. Everything relies on whakapapa, whether you go back into the Sarah and Abraham or back into the Great Flood, wherever you want to go. We're coming out of there. So this is our genealogy, first in time on this land. Tangaroa, tapu tini tini, tapu mano mano, hāpuri, hānui, hāro, hāmai tawhiti, orotu, whatumamo. These are all ancestral names. Tā mako mako, tāko tuku tuku, te matarangi, tū te ao mahanga, weropuku, nukuti ai o, tū te mohuta, hine manu. And that's Ngāti hine manu ki Taihape, just south of the township in Taihape. Now it's coming down the female line, not the male line, this particular genealogy. So why I highlighted that is in the layout of today's meeting, there was references, and I want to start at point number 12, and it was mana whenua implications. And I'd just like to thank Jackie for her presentation, for Jackie Cottrell and the Rangitike Guardians Incorporated for their little presentation, because that's all about our community at the end of the day. And one of those tupunas I read at, hapuri, means community, the community living on the lands. 4 titles existed. Okay. The name Mōwhango is the name of the river. There's the Mōwhango River and there's the Mōwhango Iti stream. The name of the land is actually called Te Reo o Puanga. That's the land block, the Valley of Puanga. So where these windmills are going to be going, I'm a land trustee up on these lands too, and landowner. That valley where the windmills are proposed to go, and opposite at Ohene Wairua Station, that's the Valley of Puanga. Now that we're going back to calendar, we use the Puanga as our guiding principles and how we might calculate where we are in a particular year and what we may be doing. So I just wanted to point that bit out. And also the name Huri Waka. Now there's a block on there, up on there where these proposed windmills is gone, are proposed to go. It's called Huri Whaka. Now our people didn't give anybody any consent to use that name. It's a tupuna name, Huri Whaka, and they've changed it to Huri Waka. So there's number 2. So the point I want to bring out is 12.2. In your paperwork today that was presented to me or given to me to look through, which allowed me to come into this process today. 12.2, there are no other known mana whenua implications associated with this report. And I'm here to say there is mana whenua implications. And the meaning of mana whenua, it's written in all sorts of legislation, mana whenua. Mana whenua means the absolute authority. And we never gave that to anybody. So I'll give you some slight indications of what that word might mean, because this is a wānanga in itself. Authority, control, power, or effect. So when you put the whenua onto it, authority, control, power, and effect over the resources. Okay, for mana whenua. So this is what we're getting down to is, and you can find these bits and pieces of in law, Wi Parata versus Bishop of Wellington. And Lord Prendergast said, how can you call something into existence that never existed? So this is pre-titles, pre-Tiriti o Waitangi. And then in Neri Aha Tamaki versus Baker in 1901, the treaty was legally recognised in New Zealand law. And that case precedent allowed the treaty to be legalised by the 1841 the 1841 Land Ordinance Act and the 1852 Constitution Act. So the next bit I'm going to go to after that is what we haven't done yet. And Te Rōpūahi Kā comes out of the 1962 Māori Community Development Act. That enactment is over. We're coming forward into the Resources Management Act, Section 58L, Section 58M. That's what I'm here to uphold today. The purpose of a mana whakahono ārohe, which we hope to engage with the council, with Ngāti Hinemanu. We've invited Andy Watson, the Mayor, to come and talk to us about this mana whakahono ārohe in the near future. Okay, yeah, that's part of my presentation today. And the purpose of a mana whakahono ārohe is to provide a mechanisms for iwi authorities, local authorities to discuss, agree, and record ways in which tangata whenua, there's the word there, may through their iwi authorities participate in resource management and decision-making under the Resources Management Act. So I'm here as tangata whenua today, going back to what I've just said to you about pre-existing rights that are still in existence today. And we look forward to the relationship that was set in there in Article 2 of the treaty. The relationship with the District Council as kāwanatanga for the protection of our rangatiratanga. So with Jackie, she said Section 6E of the RMA. I want to add a little bit more, Section F, which is the protection of historic heritage for an inappropriate subdivision use and development. G, the protection of protected customary rights. Now, a application will be put into the Māori Land Court to investigate the titles where these proposed windmills are going. Now, one of them is Mutukawa 2A 2B, Mutukawa Station, and the other one is Rangipo Waiu number 2. That's on Maunganui Station. We're going to put an application under Section 17, Section 18, Section 20, or Section 45. We'll be going into, we file tomorrow in the Aotea Māori Land Court over the titles. We never sold any of our land interest in any of these land blocks. So nā koe nā tāku I tēnei rā. I thank the council. I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you for your time today.
Councillors, questions? We have two or three minutes. Councillor Wong.
Pai. I hear your comment. What do you wish the council to proceed? What direction do you see us going down? How are we here to help you?
The 12.2, which was mentioned in the paper today, that we're talking about, mana whenua and its implications. 12.2. If we can go back to there, there's about who we are going to be engaging with. There are no other mana whenua implications associated with this port. Well, I'm here to tell you that there is. And we're coming forward under Section 58L and Section 58M. They haven't been enacted yet. So that's the relationship that we can create.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions from councillors? Councillor Wilson.
It's me hiding down the back here again. So just hearing what you said, and it's a very good explanation, and thank you for that. So your concern is that the engagement around the project, not the project itself, because I'm just trying to get some clarity around that.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. The land was changed its status in 1953. We didn't have a meeting of owners. Now, that 1953 Māori Affairs Act and the 1952 Land Transfer Act, or that 1953 Māori Affairs Act has been repealed and replaced by the Ture Whenua Māori Land Act, 1993. And we're coming forward out of there. And then we, so what was your question again? Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Subsequent, if I may, Your Worship, what I'm trying to gauge and not be leading is your views on the project itself. We've heard your views on the way it's unfolded. I want to know about the project itself. Do you have a view or a comment?
Sorry, no, the bit I was getting to is the owners haven't been engaged with. That's what I mean, and that's what we have to get. It's in Part 9 of the Te Rewhenua Māori Land Act, power of the assembled owners. We haven't had that opportunity to put our views forward. Other people are speaking on our behalf as the agents. We don't know where they get the authority from to speak
Okay.
on our behalf. We didn't give that authority to anybody else. So that's what I'm saying in regards to the owners need to be engaged with, and that was where I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that.
No, all good, thank you.
We have one last question because of time. Councillor Duncan, the response will need to be reasonably short, Opie, because we are over time. Councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Steedman. Thank you very much for your presentation. Your last, one of your last comments was around F and G. I'm assuming that's 6 point, I'm not quite sure, but you talked about heritage values and degradation of such things. So in that case, do you mean that this project might impact that?
Well, there's Y claims on there. I'll give you two of them. Y1835, Y1868. And that's to do with the Army lands, Ngāti Hinamanu's customary interest in the Army lands. Now, we didn't give any of that rights to the Army to go and lease those blocks out to Maunganui Station. So yes, we are. It's our heritage, and we do not support anything that the Army have gone and given our rights away to allow people to come in and create this mechanism. So therefore, the Army needs to be engaged about what they're doing. No, they need to come and talk with the mana whakahaere and in there in regards to the Resources Management Act, because I think this is inappropriate behaviour. It's no engagement with us.
Thank you, Opie. I need to
I hope
stop
I answered
you.
your question, Jill. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, awesome.
I need to stop you there. Opie, you referenced inviting me to the marae, and that was a discussion around local water done well and general subjects. I'm more than happy, as I've said, to meet with you. Has Jordan come up with a time frame?
Yes, he has. He wants to get the water lab. We've got its opening is on the 15th and 16th of May next month. He said he's free to engage after we open that lab with Auckland University on our marae, the water lab.
You. We'll just we'll come
Gordon
back
and
to
Lewis Haynes have been made aware, and Merv Steedman.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
God bless. Thank you.
In terms of confirmation of the order of business, we have 2 or 3 changes. First of all, the item 14.2 Martin Pool will now be considered in public after 10.2, and I'll ask staff to remind me of that at the given time. And we have a late item request for a fee waiver which will be in public excluded 14.5. Any further changes to the order of business, staff? Yes, thank you. Could we add, I will move that the apology of Councillor Ruakawa be accepted. As I've been advised, she is on a training course in Auckland. Are you wishing to second? Those in favour? Those against?
Who was the second, are you wishing?
Councillor Duncan, sorry. Thank you. I'll slow down. In terms of item number 6, the confirmation of minutes, starting on pages, I think 6, looking for alterations and corrections. I'll just go back to page 6. Starting page 7, 8 and 9, 10 and 11, 12, 13, sorry, Councillor Dalgety.
Just finding it, and we're looking at I was just concerned about resolution on page 11, the resolution minute number 25 LSC 041. You've got the annual plan 2025. That needs to be corrected, that date, those years.
Yeah, we can correct that as a minor error.
Are you happy with it being corrected by staff just as a minor? Page 1213.
Just similarly, a minor change. I just felt that we've always called those community groups the park user group, user group, and I just felt we should retain that wording.
Which
That's under
which-
page 13, under Taihebi Grandstand, first paragraph there, park user group.
Yes, I would accept that staff as a minor change. So that community group would be recalled as is it the Taihape user group, or it's a park user group, isn't it?
Park user group, it has been called.
Memorial Park
Sorry.
user
Yeah.
group.
Memorial, that's right.
How long have we got that?
Yep.
You're right. Thank you. 14, 15 and 16, looking again for alterations, corrections. No, would somebody like to so move on that basis with minor corrections? Thank you, councillor Dalgety, second to councillor Charland. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. We now deal with item 7, the follow-up actions from previous meetings, 7.1. And Kirsten, Trina, is this
Yeah,
for you?
we're happy to take it as read and look for any questions. There's a couple of updates that are other parts of the agenda. So just happy to see questions.
So any questions regarding 1, 2, 3?
On 3.
Certainly.
Yes, I just caught up with Kevin today, who's progressing the MOU with us. So he's been in quite frequent contact with the landowner out at Scotts Ferry, and they're receiving a draft of the MOU today for their input. So then it will go through the stage to make sure they're happy with it, and then that will be signed off. So there's good progress there.
And the timing is good because I'll be up there with councillor Charlotte on Sunday. It's just-
So Mr. Hines as well there.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Just item 5, just the coming options for Criterion Street and Martin High Street. The comment reads like it's this could be done within this financial year possibly, but the action will remain on the list until the end of the financial year. Will it stay on the list after the financial year?
So what we're saying is at the end of the financial year, we will see if there's any budget to do anything for this, but we won't know that until the road and budget has been looked at the end of the financial year.
But if there's no, will it?
We will have to bring it back to council if you want something done in an unbudgeted expense or
Following year.
alternative options for the following year.
Thank you.
Any further? Thank you. Did I need to receive that?
You do.
Somebody like to so move reception? Thank you, councillor Lambert moving, councillor Morn seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much, councillor Morn. Move to item number 8. This is the mayor's report, and I am certainly going to take it as read. I also take as read my report on zone. I also take as read councillor Rokawa's report on LGNZ Te Marawa meeting that she has been to. And I wish to highlight two or three other things, and I'll take any questions around those things and my appointments. First of all, thank you for the councillors that I'll go through them all and then come back. Councillors that attended and represented council on Anzac Day. As usual, the numbers of young people turning up to those ceremonies, particularly enlightening. I have just, second one, I've spent 2 days on Te Marae, looking at Hawaii Tota Otawaiu. That is the agreements around the Mofonga River. Incredibly enlightening, and I'll provide a more detailed report on that meeting probably later. But essentially, day one was looking at the awa and looking at the water takes that take water right across all of those aquifers and tributaries coming down from Ruapehu. And that is a legislative position, and I'm the representative from our council on that. Just remind councillors that there'll be a meeting on the 8th of May in Palmerston North with regard to local water done well. And today I have met with the District Police Commander Neil Furlong regarding policing in Hunterville and the options there, and he has offered to engage with the local community, which is fantastic. I congratulate the Kaupas on the Suzuki Extreme Challenge on Sunday. Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. Our current contractors are wishing to continue to engage with us in that space, and there'll be a contract that will need to come back to council with regard to that. And as I said, the two reports, so take any questions around any appointment or process. Councillor Duncan.
Oh, sorry, yes, I did want to wonder if we could, if councillor Raukawa is joining us. Oh, she is.
Apology.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Councillor Deroghetti.
I'm just interested with regards to the health space and your update around Taiapi Health. I see that the Ruapehu Mayor has been successful in moving action with the Waimarino health system. How recognising that as progress, does that help our case or otherwise?
Nationwide health is a huge issue, along with nationwide policing is a huge issue, etc. I've tried to engage with the Minister directly. I have had a conversation with our MP, Suze Redman, and looking first of all to try and find the answer to why the agreement with DHB has not been progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And there may well be a time in which we need to publicly state our position with regard to that. And I will look at those options. But when I engage with those options, I want to really have a conversation with especially Piki Tuarahiro, because she is far more knowledgeable and more active in that space, and I'll take her advice before I do so.
Thank you.
Does that help at all? Not really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan, Councillor Sharlin, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, on that subject, I did see on page 20 that Piki Tuarahiro has been appointed as the lead, and I just wanted to support that as a really good move, great step, and also the support from our ministers has been reiterated to me as well, and it's just a matter of, because it is a stated aim of this government from the top to support these health issues. I think we just need to keep grinding
Yeah, there's a number of things we're gonna have to keep hammering away at.
Yeah.
Apparently, councillor Sharland, then councillor Loudon, then councillor Wong, councillor.
Your worship, just about a comment about Anzac Day, everybody was very impressed about how quiet the trucks were. This year, they just absolutely crawl past the whole thing, there's no noise, there's nothing, it was really, really good.
That's
It was.
fantastic because the cenotaph is right on that junction
Yeah.
and it is difficult.
There was a couple of trucks even stopped, I think, for a moment to have a look, but it was very quiet.
Councillor Loudon.
Just a couple of points of clarification on your report, on South Taranaki, at 2.6. They seize the opportunity. Can you clarify, like the 89 million investment fund they have, was that purely from seed funding from local power boards, or is that a sort of where does that come from?
I need to explain for those online that can't see the report in front of you. So zone meeting was held in South Taranaki and we were at Hawera and we were at the brand new library there which came at a cost of circa around 22 million and not funded by rates. South Taranaki, the report highlights that South Taranaki are an affluent council and they have an investment fund that has credit of around 89 million. A significant proportion of that came from the sale of their local power board shares, which would have been sold to Powerco. They will have built on that investment fund substantially by way of investment return, and also they are a shareholding in the port and received money from the Think Big projects directly from Maldon area. And if you aggregate, I'm sure that all of those aggregated into that fund, which they have ring fenced to continue to grow the fund, but be able to subsidise and invest in council. And the point that I was making was, for instance, if you get sums of money returned to council, then there's a decision-making process that could be available for you to look at that sort of long-term strategy. Effectively, the same situation could be apparent, and I stress could be apparent to this council, for instance, in local water done well, or at any other time significant money was returned. I'm not saying that is a preferred position, I just say it warrants consideration. Thank you. Question. Subsequent to that?
Subsequent to that, you've also linked sort of 2.4, 5 and 6 together.
I have a report in front of me, but you can remind me.
You've said that South Taranaki has several significant industrial sites and they've drawn rates from those. You've mentioned multiple large dairy factories. My investigation is that there's only one dairy factory. There's only one wind farm. So I was just getting some clarification on that.
I'm not sure that your investigation is quite complete because they have one significant dairy farm. They've also received a second process for expansion to that, and they've also received another process for another dairy operation within their district recent. And you could add to that list Kapuni. So I think their mayor has said to me, Andy, we have at least 4 significant commercial operations. And I guess, that's been highlighted to me in terms of if we had significant industrial growth within our district or any major investment in our district, the rate burden that brings effectively subsidises. And probably the classic case is probably not South Taranaki, but Kawerau. So I understand that there are 3 businesses in Kawerau that contribute a very, very significant proportion of the rates requirement. It's just a fact of life. Does that answer your question? Thank you. I think Councillor Wong next. Now come to Councillor Wong. Did you have a question?
Yes, please. Just to revisit the comment from Councillor Dalgety about the Waimarino Health Centre. We all saw that the Mayor Weston Curtin had made a lot of made a big impact on the national news. But was there a decision? I wasn't aware there was actually a decision that had come out of that. Was that, could you please clarify that?
Yeah, I think they had been successful in moving it ahead.
They have moved ahead?
Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, for us, politicising it absolutely is an opportunity. But there are several lead organisations that we need to engage with and get their guidance. And that is why I respectfully said that Councillor Heroy is the lead there. We also have to bear in mind that with regards to Martin, that Ngā Waiariki Ngāti Apa is so active in that space, operating our health service in Martin. And so I'm trying to have an engagement there as well. Councillor, I'll cover them both. Yeah. Any further questions? No, thank you. I will move that my report and Councillor Rakawa's report both be received. First recommendation. Can we add to the Mayor's report, Councillor Rakawa's report into that recommendation, please? Looking to second, please. Councillor Duncan, did you say you were going to second?
I'd be happy to second. Can I also say something about,
Yes, certainly.
I'm sorry, you want to move it?
No.
I was really pleased to get this report because I thought it was really important that one of our councillors go. So it's great that Councillor Rakawa stepped up, and it was very, very interesting for me to get this perspective from their hui. Because in effect, it's another level of governance that we need to, the more we know about, the better we can govern ourselves.
Thank you. I'll put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. The recommendation, second recommendation as part of my report, that Council agrees to retain membership of Local Government New Zealand. And as illustrated in my report, this comes at a cost. Membership is the only way that we directly engage with central government. And I make the point that we have had a number of councils, largely metros, withdraw. They have the opportunity to engage directly with the Prime Minister and ministers at any time. We tend to rely on Local Government New Zealand, and we're very active within the Mayor's Task Force for Job and receive funding from that. I'll take any questions around that first before I move it and look for a second. Any questions? Councillor Moore.
How, with the bigger organisations moving out of LGNZ, how big a jump in the fee has there been, like 50K now? But
So the fee increase from memory, and I'd cite memory, it has grown reasonably substantially in the last few years, and it has grown for two reasons. The first is, well, three reasons. First is inflation, like any council. The second one is that there have been councils that have withdrawn, and when Auckland and Christchurch withdraw, that is significant. So they've had to cut their cloth to that. And the third reason for the increase was they have a training arm of Akona. And Akona was, you could elect to use Akona, and it came at a cost for using it. And now those training arms are freely available and wrapped up in the membership of LGNZ. In much the same way that we can go to LGNZ either for training or advice without further cost. Councillor Dalgety.
So maybe it was over, the holiday time. I did actually go onto Akona and just try and navigate my way through it. I didn't find it particularly valuable, but what I did find really interesting was it was kind of little tests in there. So it's not, so you actually do have to understand it, and then they pulled you up if you didn't, sort of thing. And I thought that was quite valuable.
Yeah, I think Akona really comes into play for us around training as Councillor 101 stuff at the start of a triennium. You know, historically you're going to get 30 to 40% turnover of councillors. There is an option that sits there, and there is absolutely training that is provided through LGNZ for every new mayor, mayors, and all councillors as part of an induction into local government.
So conversely though, all that original material, which some of it was quite good, is not available anymore.
I will formally move that we retain membership of Local Government New Zealand. Every other time we've just accepted it as a matter of doing business. We haven't gone through this process, but I think it's useful to looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Wilson, second
Discussion.
Look, I think I've addressed the reasons, and I'll reserve a right to reply. Looking for any speakers to it. Councillor Wong.
I would support the motion. The return we get through Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, which is part of that, I believe, is more than makes up our fee, and also as His Worship says, our voice will be lost amongst the other small councils. So from that point of view, it may not be perfect, but it's I think it's worth supporting.
Councillor Dalgety.
I'll speak in favour of the motion. I think there is some incredible knowledge there that we can reference as a small council. We're not going to have that capability on our own. So they are a great reference point. And getting a new CE in there, there could be some massive influence.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? We've had 3 speakers for. Councillor Duncan, you speak against the motion?
Yes, I'd like to speak against the motion. I think 50K for our little council is exorbitant, especially for what the return that we've had. Apart from Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, which I completely support and think we're doing a fantastic job, thanks to our team. The rest of it, I really wonder what they do. I get lots of emails, which I try to read, and I've also gone onto Akona and found it absolutely hopeless. So in that respect, I don't see that what was a voluntarily joined for about 15K for a council is now become compulsory, and our price has gone up to include Akona compulsorily, which I really thought was rather tricky of them. And I did not appreciate it. And I do wonder what they do. And I think Councillor Dalgety's dead right. We need a new chair, and that's coming in, but there's no guarantee it's going to get better. So I'd like to speak against it. On the scale of things, I think it's a huge amount of money, and we need to tell them that it's too steep.
Councillor Wilson.
With your approval, Your Worship, I do wish to speak to it, and hence why I
Don't need my approval. You have a right.
Well, you were talking about 3, 4 and 1 against, and it may be stepping outside our perceived procedural rules, I guess. The reason that I moved it for discussion was because I'm supportive of it. However, I want to just amend the motion slightly, and I'd like to get this, if I may, the recommendation reads that we retain membership of Local Government New Zealand, LGNZ. It is quite a blanket statement. I'd like to see some timeframes put around it, hence why I moved the motion. And I was seeking that it could possibly read until the end of the 26 financial year, and or to be subject to review at our next LTP, long-term annual plan. But I'm not sure if that is against this motion or is a negative motion in itself.
The answer from me is I'm not sure that it is necessary, because the LTP in itself is a separate process, and where anything is on the table for discussion. So on that basis, I'm not sure that it is necessary in terms of retaining membership for this financial year, because it's a financial year.
Wonder if we,
Yeah,
I just wonder if we could make a commitment that we bring the invoice back on a yearly basis, like His Worship said before, this is the first time we've actively asked you to belong or not. And it is for the 25-26 year. So that would mean that if you request staff to, or His Worship to bring it back each year, then we would commit to doing that, so you can reconsider it each year, because the
I would
LTP
be
is
in
not.
favour of seeing that somehow, as long as that could be recorded.
so I'd rather do that than look to move an amendment that it is root. I've had the discussion with staff, and I've said to staff, this is a significant amount of money, and I don't think it should be automatic, and it would be useful if we go through a process.
Yeah, I'd certainly support that.
Are you wishing to speak against the motion?
No, I just want to add to that conversation that we just had.
I think we can try and deal with the motion first, but I think we're accepting that position. Councillor Moore, are you wishing to speak against?
Going to speak against it, sort of on the same grounds as Councillor Duncan. In fact, I understand and realise the benefit of local government, what they do as a lobby group, or want of a better word. But the Acona side of it, I don't know if our council was getting the full benefit of Acona. I'd like some surety that we did the new triennium, that the new councillors or council were given those courses, or that was part of the initiation of a new council. I certainly didn't get it, and I can't see the benefit of the Acona part, and I'd like to see it broken down. How much is membership for being part of the lobby group, for want of a better word, and how much is the training part of that? Because I could understand a lot of councils are probably using it and getting, but we're not. So we're not getting value for our money on that side of it, from what I believe. So I'm speaking against it.
Okay. My right of reply. I'd advocate strongly that we stay within membership. Certainly, the organisation has had some challenges, and a lot of those challenges have been around the leadership style of LGNZ. And they are going through a new process. I think that you would, if you fully understood the amount of support that you get given by LGNZ, if we spent a lot of time going through that, you'd be surprised as to exactly what that support is. I think Councillor Moore, you also went to Council 101 sessions when you were newly elected as a councillor, because I think
Acona.
no, well, it's part of it's part of the same process.
Sorry, I don't want to, you write a reply?
Yeah. So it is part of that process. So actually, I think we had 100% of our councillors attend initial training. And so that was around what you can and cannot do as councillors it was also a way of preparing you in terms of, a 101 governance in effect. So there has been training.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm giving
Yeah,
a
but I
reply
can
to.
write a reply since you used my name.
Sorry, no, you can't. It's my right of reply, not yours. It's not a protracted conversation. So there is a huge number of times that I personally reach out to LGNZ. We reach out as part of Zone 3. Zone 3 is part of LGNZ. It is a collegial support process. Our surrounding councillors, some of them, the mayor of Wanganui went to move a motion to withdraw from LGNZ. The councillors said no. There will be councils that may or may not withdraw from LGNZ in the future. There will also be councils that may or may not return to LGNZ. But it is a pity if we don't have a national organisation to pursue remits directly to central government. It gives me a portal into ministers and ministerial level discussions that I think brings benefit to our district. I'll stop it there. I now must move to a vote under standing orders. Those in favour of retaining membership LGNZ, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 2. Do you wish your votes recorded?
Yes, please.
Motion is carried. Thank you very much. I'll move to item number 9, the Chief Executive's report.
Thank you.
Carol, the time is yours.
Thank you. As normal, I'll go through each section and take any questions as we move through the report. So just going through sections 2, 3 and 4 to see if there's any questions or comments.
Councillor Dalgety, thank you.
Can I just add to that an update, council table? The Hunterville Cricket Club has established a ground at the McIntyre Reserve. They're going to have 2 teams in the cricket competition, and junior cricket is going to start there. So everyone's feeling very positive about that.
Thank you. Councillor Sharlin, you councillor, are you aware of where the McIntyre Reserve is?
Yes.
Yep. That's Councillor Loudon.
Oh, just regarding the health and safety dashboard, location of events, hazards near misses, Mapi sort of features very strongly there. Is there a breakdown of what sort of hazards happen there? Is it physical harm? Is it abusive behaviour? It just seems like disproportionately one location.
Thank you. Sharon's joined us so she can provide some clarity on the specifics around that.
There is a detailed breakdown of the events and hazards that are happening at each location. That level of detail is not captured in the dashboard.
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me right now.
That's something I can share with you as part of my normal comms, so that you get that breakdown for yourselves.
Councillor Wong.
Just the attendance part, that's not sure it's part of your report or not. I did attend the track meeting in April.
Part of the previous report.
Was it part of previous report? Oh, sorry.
Trina will-
We'll just make the adjustment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Move
Okay,
on.
moving on to the consultation tracker and the submissions. As you can see from the table that's attached, there is still a large number of submissions, and staff are really having to make an assessment of which ones we are able to submit to based on priority and based on the desire of the council. So the ones that have been submitted through the last month are now showing on the website, so they're available for everyone to have a look at. Moving on to the funding application, Galen's provided this section to let you know what's happening with the Survivor Support and Recognition Fund.
Any questions around that one? I just would add to that, I've just recently met with one of the survivors, and I've also received reports on a memorial type headstone to go on in place just opposite Lake Alice beside the tower. And basically the words say a memorial to memory of those who didn't leave this place. Okay. That will be funded by the commission.
Yes, and then that section 8 talks about the supporters wall of fame at Matapiti, and a request from the Bulls Community Committee, and there is a mock-up of what could be put in there to recognise the supporters and the cost. It's all done in-house, obviously. The cost will be for the actual plaque to be added onto. So there's a recommendation for your consideration at the end of the report.
Thank you. Anything else? Any further questions before we move to recommendations? Would somebody like to move the receipt of the report? Councillor Dalketty, Councillor Lambert, those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 2, that the additional platinum block, etc., be added. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Sharland, it's Bulls. Would you like to move?
Yeah, definitely.
Looking for a second. Councillor Wilson seconding. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Sharland?
No, I think it's quite appropriate where they've got it.
Thank you. That's short and brief to the point. I'll put it straight to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. It moves us to 10.1. Jana, welcome to the fray. And you're going to take us through the adoption of the gambling venue class 4 policy, TAV venue policy. The time is yours.
Thank
Go for
you.
it.
So the purpose of this report is to bring you the gambling venue class 4 policy and TAB venue policy for adoption. We consulted on these policies earlier this year and received 14 submissions. The Policy and Planning Committee heard 5 of these submitters at the oral hearing that we held in March. And the Policy and Planning Committee also deliberated on these policies at their meeting earlier this month. So the policies presented to you are what has been recommended to you from the committee. Happy to take any questions.
Questions from councillors? Bearing in mind this has gone through policy, etc., etc. Councillor Loudon.
Yeah, I was on the committee, but I just have some clarification at 6, strategic alignment, the last sentence, the policies proposed for adoption in line with council's strategic direction. Can you just clarify what strategic direction is in regarding to this? Because it doesn't seem right. Okay.
So I would just say that it tends to align with just keeping in mind that we've wanting to focus on, well, some of our community outcomes are social wellbeing and economic wellbeing. I'd say that the policy from what the committee have recommended is that these policies do align with that, and we're happy with the approach these policies take.
Question?
Yeah.
We just then go down to 7.3. The last sentence there, the proposed policies retain the cap of EGMs and do not allow standalone TAB venues, which aim to ensure that harm associated with gambling will not increase in our district. That doesn't seem quite right to me. We should be promoting a decrease of gambling harm in our district. And would that align better with our strategic direction for council?
I would say I feel like that would be a question more for elected members to advise us on what direction they want the policy to be in if they don't believe that it aligns with our strategic direction.
Councillor Wong.
I was also part of the policy and planning committee. And if you read the context on page 2.1 to 2.2, the council must have regard to the social impact of gambling within the district. They took into consideration both the positive benefits of gambling, social content, the monetary that we do take from the pub charities and Lotteries Commission, the enjoyment of the legal gamblers, the actual commercial functions of the premises that do, the consideration of the problems that we deemed under control, and that it was better. We felt it was better to be seen as rather than hidden into online gambling, other venues, which promotion has been increasing at a great rate on the internet in the last few years, which is subject to a parliament review as we speak. So on that basis, I thought we had resolved that. This was the balance that we had, and hence why we had moved the policy on. That's why we had agreed to policy and recommended that this be moved at this meeting.
I think councillors, we're moving into potentially into areas of debate. And as such, what I might do is refer us back to the first recommendation, that of just simply receipt of the report. So I don't want to do things twice. Councillor Duncan, you wishing to move a receipt? Councillor Wilson seconding. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. And if we move to recommendation 2, that the gambling venue class 4 policy is adopted and that council gives the chief executive authority to make editorial changes. Bear in mind that these are recommendations made by staff. You can make an alternative recommendation if you wish, but I think it's far better if you are speaking to a recommendation that has a seconder before we proceed. Councillor Duncan, you wishing to move? Are you wishing to move as stated?
Yes.
Seconded. Any questions around this as an issue before you get into debate? Councillor Dalgety.
So just interested, I assume this has been fully discussed at policy and planning.
Has.
And hearings as well.
Yeah, has.
Yeah.
So that's your question, that's your answer.
Thank you, yes.
Do you wish, Councillor Duncan, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. I was very ambivalent when I started on this journey, but over the last, it must be at least 4 meetings, including the submissions and consideration. And I thought the submissions were fantastic, by the way. They were so comprehensive, and there were definitely 2 sides to that story. But I really felt that the committee considered it very well and balanced it against those submissions, against what had previously been put there, and the cap was appropriate. I was quite convinced by the end of it that the cap was and is and will be appropriate going forward. So I'm very happy to move this.
Any other speakers? Councillor Moore.
Seconder, I totally agree that that policy and planning committee heard the submissions. They were both sides of the coin. Get rid of gambling, get the benefits of the funds from them and all that sort of stuff. I think we took it into due consideration, and there were some changes to the policy, and that's a recommendation from the committee.
2 speakers for Councillor Lowry.
I'd like to speak against. If we go to 3.2, you'll see that I voted against. But at the policy committee meeting, I respect the other elected members' voting on this. However, I really feel as though for the well-being of our community, I agree with the track members and that this should be us thinking that policy. But so I'm voting against this.
Yeah, councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship. Speaking for the motion and agreeing with the two other supporters that have already spoken on a matter that had a huge amount of discussion and debate via policy and planning, via the submissions on the day, of which there was a number. Lots of questions were asked. It was very detailed, it was very thorough, and I certainly support the mover and the seconder in their support of the motion.
Any further speakers against the motion? Right of reply, councillor Duncan.
The only thing I would add further is that the amount of harm from gambling is very well documented throughout New Zealand, and the Rangitikei actually has a lower number against the amount of harm than many other districts. And that gave me comfort. I don't know whether I can say this, but the chair of policy and planning also happens to be the chair of Te Oropo Ahika. And that certainly had, as far as I'm concerned, that had a positive effect on our understanding of the decisions that were made.
Thank you. I now must put it to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Motion is carried. And you wish a vote recorded against?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Loudon, recording a vote against or to the contrary. Recommendation 3, that the TAB venue policy is adopted and the council gives the chief executive authority to make minor editorial changes. Any questions around the report? Councillor Wilson, you wishing to move as stated?
As stated, yes.
Looking for a seconder to that, councillor Lambert. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship. But just to reiterate, thoroughly and detailed in the policy and planning review. So I'm quite happy that the policy as written is correct to be adopted.
Other speakers? Councillor Lambert.
I just reiterate, on my time in policy and planning, I thought it was very, very well done. All sides were viewed at all angles, and we came to what I considered to be a very, very fair decision.
Any further speakers? Do you wish your right of reply? It's difficult when somebody supports you and quotes saying you support them. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. You wish your vote recorded?
Yes, please.
Thank you. That is your right. Moving to 10.2. This is the Wind Farm Council delegation, and as I said, and I was a commissioner on the original application by Central Wind. That application has lapsed. And it was lapsed, it went to the Environment Court and has lapsed, approved by the Environment Court and then lapsed.
An extension.
Yeah. And so this is a separate application, and also our district plan has subsequently changed, and you could say partly as a result of that. However, on reflection, as I've sat here, I think that I could be potentially to have a position associated with the decision that I made in terms of Central Wind. I'm going to pass the chair of this item through to the Deputy Mayor. With your permission. Sorry, I didn't warn you about this. I hadn't considered it earlier.
Thanks for the heads up.
Because the camera will swap seats.
Yeah.
I stress that I have no, in declaring a conflict, I have no pecuniary interest at all.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for taking the time to consider this matter and raising what you perceive to be a conflict of interest. And thank you for your honesty and your explanation as to why you feel that conflict exists. So moving on, I see a hand up from Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I also need to declare conflict of interest in this case. Because in the original application for Project Central Wind from Meridian Energy Limited, I actually was a expert witness for the Rangitikei Guardians and have been a member and am still a member. But I have stepped off the executive. But there's no way I don't have a conflict of interest. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Happy to
Councillor.
answer questions.
I think what we'll do is with regards to that, we will consider both yourself and the worship to have a conflict. Please remain in the room and certainly remain sitting at the table, but I do believe that it will be a conflict when we come down to doing recommendations. However, we will consider with comments from you throughout it, but we'll just have to test that water when we get to the particular subject. So I think that's the way we should proceed with regards to that. So we are now looking at item, catch up with me, sorry. So 10.2, we've had two submissions today presented to us in public forum. I think there's quite a detailed report there. Are all councillors aware of the details around the report and what is being requested by council staff? Are there...
Just wonder if Joanna is in the room who wrote this report. Unfortunately, Johan's not available, but Joanna probably like to provide some context if you're able to be.
Yeah, good idea. So we'll pass to you, Joanna, to perhaps update us further on the report that we've got presented in front of us today.
Introduce.
Joanna, you want to introduce yourself? Others might not have met you.
Hello, everybody. Joanna Verhoek, I'm the planning manager here at the council. Been here for 5 odd years now, originally in a consultancy role, but more recently direct employment. So my item today relates to the delegations that we require to engage in the Fast Track Approvals Act process. So as you'll be aware, the Fast Track Approvals Act came into force late last year. This is one of the national government's, coalition government's initiatives. But its purpose is to provide a bespoke RMA process for projects which have significant regional or national benefits. So the purpose of this item, what it's not seeking to do is to make decisions on the merits of the application. What this item is seeking is delegation to engage in the process. The council have no processing or decision-making process or involvement. It sits fully with the EPA. It does not sit with the council like we used to with other resource consent processes. What the delegations will enable us to do is engage. I heard our public forum speakers earlier. I acknowledge what they have to say. And what these delegations will enable is us to hear those and consider them when we're requested by the EPA to engage, to make comments, to respond. The EPA, the Act sets out very stringent timeframes, which we as an affected party, the council, as well as regional councils, iwi groups, treaty settlement entities, will all be bound by these timeframes, which we have to respond to the EPA as the decision maker, as the authority with the power to do so, to make the decision on the application. So the merits of the proposal that we've heard earlier in our public forum, that we will hear from our other community groups, the decision and the consideration of those sits with the EPA. It does not sit with us. Other than that, I think the information is contained in my report. To answer your questions.
One quick question from me, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong. When it comes to, we understand that by and large the decision-making process is not actually up to us as a council such. It's an external agency. Do we have the ability to have any input into what considerations they may consider as part of the consent? Is there any input that we do actually have? I mean, if there's can we have some say as to, well, okay, if you're doing this, we'd like this to be considered?
Yes.
We do have that ability?
Yeah, essentially they would treat us, regional councils, iwi groups, et cetera, as an affected party. They will ask how we feel about the proposal, and at that point in time, we can take into consideration our community, our district.
So with regards to that, as we take into consideration, would this report mean that we as staff or we as in council?
We can do both, similarly as we did with the solar farm,
Okay. Okay.
which is our intention.
So I'd certainly be looking to see that was somehow locked into this process as we step through the recommendations to make sure that those could be fed into the process, which ultimately you'll need to feed back into. So that's what I'm seeking to do.
I'll just make one more point. I think Joanna yesterday, I had a conversation with her around this as well. And from my understanding, the EPA give very tight timeframes. So they request information from us and they request it to be given back to them in a very short time. So this is exactly what Joanna said. It's an engagement process, but it's allowing us to provide that information to them within their required timeframes. And that's really important because if we have to bring everything back to council all the time, we're unlikely to meet their timeframes, and that puts a whole different flavour on it.
Yes, thank you. I understand that in reading the report. But there may be some things that are perhaps slightly more significant than what we would just call a request for information or in a consenting process. There may be a degree of, and I'm just trying to test out what those degrees may or may not be. But we'll step around the room. Perhaps I can give you some time, Joanna, to think about that. Simon.
Just from my understanding around that, are you suggesting that the EPA request us for information? We can't say to the EPA, we'd like to be heard on this issue.
Correct.
Can we make that request?
We can ask. But no, they invite and they will receive and consider duly under their legislation. There's also, just adding to what Carol mentioned, there's no right, we have no right to seek a waiver to any time limits. So once they've asked us and any other group, the time is the time. We've got no ability to request any waivers.
So if we wish to have a say, we need to be proactive and ask.
So that's what this item seeks, is the delegation, that when they do ask us, that we have the delegations to respond.
Councillor Moore.
My question is, the public forums today were asking us to be involved in the EPA based on their reasons were what they gave us. If we need to do an analysis ourselves of the benefit to the Rangitikei District Council, not just, we don't want to be a lobby group for the people that have at public forum today, because there may be some financial benefits for the whole community of jobs, 150,000, power to 150,000 houses, all that sort of stuff. I don't want to get cornered and say we're a lobby group because we've got to do it for our own merits and the benefit of the whole district. So yeah, that's all I'm a little bit worried about. We've been asked to do this by one group or a couple of groups, but we should be doing it. We should be doing it off our own bat for the whole of the community or the whole of the district council.
Your Worship, can I perhaps ask you to either give some thought to this? I'd like to hear comment from you, but purely and simply around the process.
Certainly. First of all, there are some questions here in my mind around process. The first one is one of timing, and I would accept that there will be difficulties around timing. However, council could also make a decision to delegate to a group or the mayor or whoever around the response. There are two forms of guidance I'd give you. There are two forms of response that are being asked for here. First of all, a response for information should never have to be delegated. If council holds that information and somebody asks for that information, then that should be freely available. So there wouldn't need to be a delegation around that. However, if council is asked in any way for an opinion, which also includes potential conditions, that is an opinion that should reflect it on council. It goes out with a council signature, not the signature of the staff member that has done it. And that is something that I would advise council to consider well.
Okay.
So I'd say a mix and match.
So just before I go to you, Councillor Dalgety, have you got comment on that, Joanna? Just hearing what His Worship has mentioned with regards to your report and how this process could work. Regarding that, you know, what was just an information and what might be a request for an opinion?
Sure, so the Fast Track Approvals Act sets out the process. Once this, what's called a substantive application is made by the group to the EPA, various parties are required to be consulted with. What that looks like is the EPA will ask those parties for comments. It's not necessarily, perhaps I misled you slightly, they're not asking us for information, they're asking us for comments as an affected party. We have the ability to respond both at an operational level as well as a elected member level. And they will also ask us to provide feedback and comments once it gets through the process on the draft conditions. That's important because once a decision is issued by the EPA, if it's an approved decision, it will be handed back to the council as the TA to regulate and enforce that decision. So we will monitor conditions, do any post-consent checks, ongoing enforcement compliance, etc. So we need the ability to be able to respond and feed into the commentary on those draft conditions prior to their issue. The EPA will also ask us for a panel recommendation. So once the substantive application's been made by the applicant to the EPA, they will ask us for someone from the authority, the district, which is a little bit complicated for us, seeing as the wind farms across 2 districts, to sit and advise at a local level. There will also be an iwi representative on that panel heard by an RMA expert. So I suppose fundamentally, these delegations are intended to set us up to efficiently and effectively engage. We preclude that if we don't have the permissions in place to do so. To not just speak to the views of those we heard at the public forum, but generally at the council level, how we feel that the proposal sits within the district.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll go to Councillor Dalgety.
So, does the council or us or the group submitting do a full cost benefit analysis that would include economic effect? And do we see that, or?
Yes. So between Ruapehu and ourselves, we've already engaged an independent to advise or to oversee the project. Essentially, it's a very large scale project that requires substantial input, resource. As a part of the process, the applicant has prepared a whole swathe of technical reports. One of those looks at economic analysis that will all then be assessed, overseen by our consultant that we've engaged, who's liaising with the relevant staff members at the council level, such as Jared, to do with the economic benefit, cost analysis, etc. for the district. So yes, there is. It's the short, truncated answer.
Okay, I'm just looking to perhaps move to some of the recommendations here. Looking to our Chief Executive for comment, and I'll come back to you, Mum, Jill. Or would you like me to go to Jill first? Jill, we'll take comment from you.
I'm just concerned that that one of the submitters brought up this morning that there are things that are incorrect in this report. I know what they're referring to. Is it important that we?
On that, I would say that would be their opinion, and was it substantiated with an actual fact or a document to support what they said was an
The document's
inconsistency?
here. It's within. You can see it right in front of you.
Yes, but where was I also saw that in their report. But what was in, did the submitter, you said the submitter brought something up
They brought
today?
it up, but I'm just saying I also picked this up in this report, and is it important for this council to just look at that before they go further?
I'd be wondering where was the supporting evidence to say that the document's incorrect?
It's in here.
Yes, because there's something written in the report here that you believe is incorrect, or the submitter believed is incorrect. Where's the actual document that says it's incorrect?
You will find attached to this report at the bottom on page 49.
Okay, yeah, which is in the full, which is the
Which
full.
is the
report,
planning
yeah.
memo from Hurawaka Wind Farm.
Yeah.
Under site, which is the second box, it talks about the site comprises approximately 71 kilometres.
And what the report
the-
says 56, doesn't it?
That's right.
Okay, so that's what you referred to. I just
Yes.
didn't hear that come from the submitter. I'm hearing it come
No,
from
they
you.
just mentioned that there were inaccuracies. And that one is one of them.
I would then turn to the writer of the report and ask, is that significant in the context of the recommendations that we're about to make? Or is that simply a matter of the fact that they could be incorrect in one of the two reports, being the two
I don't know
different
what the
cases?
error is actually.
Sorry?
I don't know what
There's two
the,
different
Oh,
ones,
sorry.
One-
71,
yeah.
your 56. There's
Your
two.
oh, I
report,
see.
yeah, your report says 56, the other says
Three
71
says 56 kilometres,
kilometres or
think
something.
it's
given that it's 20 square kilometres.
So it's not substantial in the context of the report or in the context of the recommendations that I'd seek that we move towards. But you're noting that, councillor Duncan, that there's an inconsistency on those two numbers.
I beg to differ that it's not significant when you're talking about 20 kilometres of land next to a community. If our planner doesn't know whether it's right or wrong, that's also significant, I would have thought.
Well, I'd have to say that you just might want to be a little bit careful there.
I'm just
But the
saying.
point that I'm making, if I may, it is not significant in the recommendations that we are looking at.
Councillor Duncan has declared a conflict of interest. Is this the right process if you've declared a conflict of interest to have a debate across the table?
Thank you for that,
Roll on that.
councillor Moore, and I am going to roll on that and come back to the recommendations. To what I said, that I don't believe the inconsistency that's been referred to is significant in the recommendations. So looking at recommendation A, the council receives the report for Walker Wind Farm Council Delegation Fast Track Approval Delegation, seeking a mover. Councillor Lambert seeking a seconder. Councillor Morn, all those in favour? Aye. Against? A is carried. And I'm going to step through in these A, B or C. You can call them one or two, whichever way you wish. Recommendation B confirms the delegation of council's functions under the Fast Track Approvals Act 2024 to the Rangitikei District Council Chief Executive, except for the power to appeal decisions. Is anybody seeking to move that or speak to that?
Can I raise a question?
Question with regards to that, your worship, happy to accept.
So this would also include the power to make recommendations as to conditions.
Would you be seeking to add that to that section of that? And then I would say.
Well, I can't because I'm conflicted, but I just want you to consider that.
Thank you.
But I would say in terms of process, it is normal for council staff to but it's normal for council staff in any case, under any process, and this is different to the RMA process, to consider what consent conditions would be advisable.
So with that, and I thank you for that, I understand where you're coming from. Would that suffice the earlier conversations we had with regards to the potential any recommendations from council?
So wonder if I could just suggest an alternative,
Yes.
that this could include words around that conditions and significant matters be taken to the policy planning committee, so that there's a level of scrutiny within that committee.
But suggest in terms of timeframe, if you did that,
Be too long.
then you may wish to consider that it's not to policy and planning, but it is to the mayor and or a councillor in terms of allowing a timeframe. Because I think I accept in terms of process, the timeframes could well be challenging.
If we were to add that to this recommendation, referring to recommendation B, I wouldn't want us to get too bogged down onto who those people may be. Certainly the mayor would be required to be one of them, but there may be some other councillors that have perhaps better suited to be in that space, and we should be considering that. So I wouldn't want to be, so whether or not we had council A, the mayor plus A and B, or something like that, whether or not that could possibly work.
Mayor to circulate to councillors.
Or the mayor to circulate to councillors perhaps even. Yeah, would be a good idea. What I'm trying to do is get in here so that we can have so much control about making sure that if there is a significant decision, the council can have some sort of input, and it's not to try and stifle the work that you need to do, Joanna, but it's a significant matter of great of public concern to some, particularly in the northern area. But so just as we're just coming up with some words around that one, I've got a couple of hands up. Councillor Loudon.
Can I throw a curveball? Does this trigger significance and engagement? No?
This would be my first take on it, but I'd seek guidance on that. I wouldn't have thought it does, no.
We have had two public sort of submissions on it, and a group of people in the far north of the region who have a large group and quite concerned. I just wonder whether it would.
You're talking about a community interest aspect, so I think that process will happen through the process that EPA run anyway.
What I'd say is the public forum speakers that we heard earlier concerned with the merits of the application. This item has no relevance to the merits of the proposal. It relates to our ability to participate legally in the process.
It is also, in regards to significant engagement, it is not an activity that council is undertaking. So therefore, that would probably negate it from our significant engagement policy in that respect. It's not a council undertaken activity. Councillor Dalgety.
Just for clarity, I'm not certain in my mind where, if we do this delegation, yeah, where are we kept up to date and or have the ability to input? I totally understand time is of the essence, but I'm just not understanding where that touch point back to council would be.
That's what we're seeking to do with the slight amendment to.
For sure, but so when would that be though? Yeah.
Carol, Katrina, sorry, I need help in the answer to that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we don't know when the engagement's going to come from the EPA, so we can't put a time frame on it.
How do we get it back?
Yeah,
At that
that's,
time?
it just doesn't seem to me to be any clear pathway that we are going to get,
Feedback.
yeah. And whether we agree with it or not, there is concern and probably for some people, excitement about this. You know, it is of huge, significant public interest.
What I would say, this item doesn't seek to exclude that option. What it seeks to do is enable the operational involvement.
Okay.
We don't actually even know when the application is going to be lodged. They've indicated that the substantive application, that they would like to lodge it by.
So I don't mean the date specifically, sorry, I'm meaning when in this process would it come back?
Perhaps could I suggest that it would certainly be something that would be a standing item, possibly in the chief executive's report and or possibly through assets and infrastructure by
Very good with that, yeah,
if it
thank
was
you.
to come through back to council for some form of update. If there is nothing to update on, then it might not be, but there may be, again, it's not a council activity. It's not something that council is actually undertaking itself. So we need to remember that we're not doing this.
But it is, we have had other similar applications, solar farms, etc., which I, as a councillor, have felt ignorant of what was happening. And the information that I was receiving was by the public, certainly not around this table. And because it is impacting our district so much, I'd prefer to feel more informed.
Okay, well, perhaps we could suggest and certainly looking to move this item along a bit if I can, but perhaps we can suggest that when the application is lodged through to the EPA, we're advised. Because we don't know when that will be. That could be next month, it could be in 6 months, it could be 8 months.
Oh, I totally
And
agree.
if at least we could then reconsider what the application may look like, what some timeframes may be, and what some touch points could be if there was any input that we could have. So perhaps we could request that at such time as notification is lodged, we could be made aware of that. Would that be suitable?
Could I note that as a follow-up action?
Perhaps it's a follow-up action. That way, at least we've got something that says, when you get it, you can just let us know that you've received it. It may not look anything different than what you've given to us today, but that would give you some time to understand it more as to what timeframes may be considered. And that would then help allay the concerns that Councillor Dalgety has. Councillor Moore.
We've heard some references to the solar farms, and we've obviously been involved with the EPA process through the solar farms. At least I'm very bad memory. I don't remember going through this process to deal with issues about solar farms. So why is it because of the request from the submitters?
Because the changing to the delegations policy has been noted. Yep. So it's actually the delegations that we're discussing around here, not necessarily what the solar farm, it's actually the delegation.
No, but what's the delegation process for the solar farm?
It's because it's new legislation.
Yeah.
This is a new piece of legislation that we don't currently have delegation to.
Right, so we now, if I can just move on, we're now going to B. And if we can just confirm what that says, it says recommendation B confirms the delegation of council's functions under Fast Track Approval Act 2024 to the Rangitikei District Council Chief Executive, except for the power to appeal decisions, noting that conditions and significant matters will be provided to the mayor and elected members for their input. Do we have a mover for that recommendation as it is, as worded? Is there a correction there somewhere I'm seeing?
I think there needs to be a word and, except for the power to appeal decisions and noting that conditions and significant.
Okay, thank you. A little bit of a typo there, we'll call that. So I have a move from Councillor Lambert and I have a seconder from Councillor Dalgety. All those in favour? Against? That motion is carried. We now move to C. The council confirms that the chief executive has the power to further delegate these functions to council officers. That would seem like a no-brainer to me. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Do I seek a seconder? Councillor Lambert, thank you. All those in favour? Again, that motion is carried.
Can we just pause there to catch up?
Can I ask a question, maybe one?
Yes, Councillor Wong.
I understand Councillor Duncan's conflict of interest is on the guardians of the group, but His Worship being a commissioner on the project, I thought would have been impartial to the process, or should have been, I feel, partial to the process, looking for the best outcome, not just for the community, but as a.
I think I'd like to speak that I would have no doubt that His Worship was impartial as best as he can to the best of his abilities. He has declared a conflict of interest as he feels that one exists. And I simply asked him for comment before on a procedural matter of council, did not ask for any opinion regarding the project itself.
I still don't see the conflict of interest.
Any member can declare a conflict if they perceive that they have a conflict. The mayor has indicated that it's certainly non-pecuniary, but in his determination of today's proceedings, he has felt himself that it may be a perceived conflict. And with regards to that, we should support that motion. Your Worship, you have comment with regards to that?
When you are a commissioner, you're obliged to have an impartial mind and you consider the evidence of the time against what has been requested. And as a commissioner on this, first of all, one, it was a separate application. Two, that it was an application made against the government policy statements of the day and the state of our district plan at that time, both of which can subsequently change. However, conflict of interest is not only as to what you personally believe, because I believe that I could be totally impartial around the advice to council and to any other party. However, there is a perceived, in the general public, there may be a perceived, that is why I asked the question of Jackie. So I'm quite happy to go. I can't tell you how other members of the panel voted. That is their right to disclose. But at the time, I voted for this to proceed and was honest about that in an explanation to the community. And part of that process was against the standing of our district plan and particular words within it around the nature of the land at the time.
Worship, I think you've articulated that pretty well, but you've also noted at the time, just particularly for anybody who may be listening online, what date was that? Because some people may perceive this to have been just last week sometime.
Around 2010.
Yeah. So this is really, and I just raised that because anybody perhaps listening online may not understand how long that these events were. They're certainly not recent, and that gives more credence to the fact that that was your, at the time, things were different.
Absolutely correct. And for instance, any councillor can take a decision on whether to build a new cycling track in a district and vote one way 10 or 15 years ago, and subsequent information becomes available, which changes the total horizon and the environment you operate in. But is it fair to go back and say 15 years ago you voted with this way? I don't believe that that is a conflict for me, but there could be a perceived position because as a commissioner I made a decision.
Except that it's on perception, so thank you for that. Does that answer your question, Councillor? Thank you. We now need to move to D. This is the further part of the recommendations in front of us. Notes the Chief Executive intends to delegate responsibilities to the Group Manager of Regulatory Emergency Management, who has the responsibility for planning functions related to Resource Management Act 1991, and notes, so we'll take D and E together if we can, and notes Council's delegation to positions policy will be updated following this meeting to reflect the changes approved by Council. Is everybody happy if we roll D and E together as one recommendation? I don't see a problem with it.
That's good.
I'll move that from the chair. Seeking a second to Councillor Sharland. No need to have further discussion on the matter, I do not believe. All those in favour? Against? That motion is carried. We are now 5 minutes off our standard time. Councillor
I'll
Lowe.
just say one thing before we go on this. I feel as councillors, we need to apply ourselves to this issue and get a good understanding ourselves of the issues around this before we get asked, and need to actually have a pretty solid position on where we feel as an elected group we wish to go with this before things get put upon us.
Well, of course, that's the art of being on councils. We all have individual voices and we all have individual opinions. So I'm sure councillors themselves will do their due diligence on the matter, particularly of the amount of information that has come to light today, and that a number of members may not have been aware of. So I think that puts us in a strong position now to get a greater understanding of these matters at such time as some information comes to us from our planning team that an application has been lodged, and we'll be able to give some further focus to this matter at that stage. That's where I consider that to be.
And I think the feedback, the commitment we've given is to providing you the information to seek your feedback, but like we do with our submission process, get your feedback on. We have provided that commitment.
If without further comment.
A question, please.
Yes.
So will all fast track applications require this delegation's approval, or does that transcend across all fast track applications now?
Yes, but we only have one. It's this one, the Hiriwaka.
But not to say that something might come in,
Yeah, true.
yeah,
Yeah, yes,
right.
so these delegations would apply to any application made under the fast track in our district.
Right.
But similarly, it would come to you, as
see.
per our amended recommendation.
Thank you.
Right, we're a couple minutes away from our standard break at 2 hours, so I'll call the meeting to adjourn now for 10 minutes. And then hand the meeting back to His Worship there to take the rest, to take us through the rest of today's procedures. Thank you. We'll be back to those online shortly.
We're holding on.
Back online.
We're now back online. Welcome back, everybody. We're now moving to the item, which is 10.4, the last on centre. Mr. Bernardo, if you wish to take us through.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes. So this report follows up from the workshop that we had beginning of April. During the workshop, many different options were discussed. And what we thought with this report is we will write it in a way that it structures your decision making in a better way. It kind of follows the logic that was discussed at the workshop. So as you read through the report, you will see that there's a bit of a reminder of what those options look like and what was discussed and how we got to where we are. And then at the analysis of the options, it starts really with these questions for the decision making. So the first question is, are we committed to doing something at the Martin facility, or do we just shut it and leave it? That's the first question. And then the second question is, once you've made that decision, is if it is, we are going to do something to the facility. Second question is it this facility, or should we consider some other option? And that's kind of how we structured it. So if it is this facility, then we've got those 4 options. Is any of those of interest to councillors? If not, maybe a hybrid of those options. But we thought in the future, if anybody would read it, the decision making is quite logical. And any of those points, it can take a different direction depending on council's decision. And that's how we structured it. And what we tried to do at each of these options is have a bit of a reminder of what was discussed on the day and advantages and disadvantages of those decisions, just to help with the process of stepping through all of them. So really, I think that's about the most important bits as to how we structure it. The other really important thing that was outstanding from the workshop was we got some legal opinion on if we need to consult or not, or when do we need to consult and on what items. And I might ask Katrina to give us a bit more info on the outcome of that.
Yes, certainly, through you, Your Worship. So what we've set out in the report is in each of the options that are identified, there's a sentence providing officer advice around consultation or not. When we've received the legal advice, that legal advice is broadly consistent with what we had set out in the report. So there's no major updates in terms of the report that's in front of you compared to the advice received in the legal advice. You will appreciate that the way you get legal advice is it goes into much more in depth around those kind of decision-making requirements. But effectively, there are a number of options, well, 2 effective options, 3 effective options that we're suggesting wouldn't require consultation, with the remainder of the options requiring either consultation and some of them a potential LTP amendment.
Thank you for that. Just one other item that we need to discuss, I think is really important, and we can't do it until you've made up your mind as to what you'd like to do, is potential timelines. So it depends on where you'd like to head, what those timelines can look like. I think it's important for us to put something in writing and record it, and then go from there. So, any questions?
While you're thinking about that, would somebody like to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Sharland. Councillor Dalgety and Sharland. Those in favour? Morning. Those against, carried. Thank you. Question from me. Option 2, which would include strengthening of the walls and replacement of the roof, so with new beams throughout, and can add a clear light modern structure roof to let sunlight on. Still could mean in the future that if council wish to look at further options 3 and 4, wouldn't disadvantage that process.
Yep, correct.
Any other questions? Councillor Derrick.
So if you took option 2, I'm not sure if you can answer this, sorry, but
Try me.
what's the confident, how confident would you be that you could open by next December?
For me or for you?
I think we'll have a different answer.
So, yeah. My view has always been to try and have that pool open for next summer. Whether that is early summer or late summer, I don't know, but that would be the aim. And we have somebody who's prepared to work with us, potentially in terms of making that possible, in terms of funding. That's their intent as well. However, I absolutely accept that the timeframes to achieve that would be incredibly tight, and it would depend on, first of all, we wouldn't have to go to consult, we could just do that. But it would depend on the tender process and contractual positions as much as anything.
Your Worship, if I can add some comment, if I may. I had a discussion with the engineers in the week to ask if they have capacity to help us do that in as fast as possible a way so they can commit resources to it. But unfortunately, he said to me that the only realistic expectation would be the time to get a contractor on site is 6 months from the minute you make up your mind. The construction will be tricky, it won't be easy. So even that minimum solution would be 3 to 4 months, which gets you with the Christmas break closer to June next year to complete. So that's the advice given. What I have done, but let's not preempt a decision. Once you've made a decision, I do have a breakdown of all those steps and what it could look like, and at least it's a peg in the sand and we can work with that.
As I said, the intent has always been to aim for having it open in the summer if possible. But in terms of with the community, if it was in the throes of literally a construction site, would they accept that? The alternatives aren't easy alternatives. Yeah, timeframes are what they become. Councillor Elder.
Question, and I may have missed this, but the location of the pool beside the stream, has there been geotech done on that area? Will satisfy investment in the old pool?
Yes, actually, that was one of the first things that came up. So yes, we've done the geotech. We've also done the structural view of that corner. It is really close, and I think it's a constant risk into the future. It is right on the edge of the stream. For now, it's good.
Streams change direction.
It does. It does.
They undermine.
Yeah, this is sort of sparked a question in my mind just reading through this. Has Swim New Zealand or whoever they are done a report on the future of swimming, where they see it going forward in a few years' time? And if so, have anyone seen the report, read the report? Or have I been given the report and I've forgotten, or all of the above?
I can reply to that. We've had discussions with Sport Whanganui and Sport New Zealand about the pool. What they've got is they have got a very comprehensive database of all the pools that's owned by all its schools, councils, whoever owns the pools. That then describes to you what it does, what the size is, and what the function of it is. And really what they want is for communities to have a look at that before we build more.
Yeah.
So if there is something close by that you can use to do the same thing, then you should use that. So we've had a look at that, and for us, the closest would be Fielding and Whanganui. So it is quite a bit of travel, and there is some merit in looking at something for this community.
Just something, I'm thinking more along the lines of like, it's been described like a pool for elderly to do the exercises. Like, is that perceived as a growth area? And this, like Golf New Zealand did a review 5 or 6 years ago, and it's almost like they travelled into the future to get the report. It's been so accurate, the way golf's evolved, and I was wondering whether they are swimming, like with the idea of the more for exercise general pools as popular as a swimming, actual having a lane pool.
Well, we haven't seen an official report and research done on that. I haven't seen that, but what we have had is some feedback from CLM that manages the pool. And there is a lot more use in that space than what we're getting into.
Councillor Sharda.
I'd like to throw in a complete curveball and suggest that we demolish the pool and start again, because the reason being is that we could build a very, very modern facility. Jared Kelkin and his men have suggested we spend a couple of $1 million and do up the town centre and everybody will come to Martin, but I don't believe that'll attract people to Martin. But if we had a facility like we could possibly build, it's a point of difference and that will attract people to Martin. And I think we could we've got the opportunity to do something that's going to last for the next 50 years instead of doing up something that's 50 years old.
So on page 2 of the document, which I'm not sure what page it will be on the agenda, but that is the second question in the decision making tree is construct a new pool facility or continue with existing.
And the other thing to substantiate that is that if we were to do it as a council, we could get the community involved, and it's not just for Martin, it's for the whole of the Rangitikei. Everybody get behind a project and we could have a very, very modern, up-to-date facility.
Councillor Dalgety.
In this study, or have Sport from New Zealand, given an indication of the need or the benefits of having a 50-metre pool?
No, they have not had a view on that. What is interesting, the existing 50-metre pool does not comply with the depth requirements. So none of the clubs will use it at the moment. We would have to make it deeper before they would be interested in using it.
So you don't, by the way, you don't dig out a pool.
Yeah.
You just raise the surrounds.
Make it better.
Because people immediately, for those people online, they'll be thinking, oh, they're going to dig a big hole under the pool to deep it. No, you don't. You would need to raise it by about that much, and you do so by putting a nib around the edge. In terms of this, is there anybody that believes that the Martin Swimming Centre, that Martin doesn't need a swimming pool? That we just close the thing?
I'll just chuck in a. I wonder whether it would be a catalyst to get the community behind walking down the street. We want our pool, because I just think of communities like Hunterball and their pool, Taiabe and their grandstand. The community says they want this thing and they get behind it, you know. Sometimes you've got to shut something down before people say we really want this. So that would be the only reason. Once they shut the pool and see how the community reacted, then you could get sponsors on board. You get the communities doing all their fundraising and stuff like that. I know it's millions of dollars, but it should be a joint community council effort or something.
Yeah, and I've just checked with my chief executive. We have had an offer made to council to substantially invest in the pool from the community. So in terms of community funding, the significant portion, a very significant portion of the option would be covered at level option 2. Go Councillor Loud and Councillor Duncan.
Was that pool or a pool?
Sorry?
Is that investment for that pool or a pool? If we build a new pool, is that?
That's an investment into that pool. With the view to say essentially fix the pool. And in fixing the pool, that still leaves you with options to make it into something quite different. So you could do level two and then transform it into whatever, if you wish, which could potentially have a budget to 12 million or whatever. Councillor Wilson.
Just helping to facilitate this item, your worship, what I'd like to suggest is a single recommendation that says the council does not close the swimming centre. I'd like to see that out there and just firmly put out, because there is suggestions that council has an underlying desire to do so, and I've heard that from the community. I'd like to get this out and about, and I'd like to seek some council support by recommendations that says Rangitikei District Council does not close the swimming centre permanently.
I'd second that,
recommendation.
and I think it is an important message to send to the community that we believe in the swimming pool. So sorry, I'm pre-jumping. Do you wish to speak to?
No, you've said it very well. But I do want to get this matter tidied up by a formal resolution, recommendation of council, and I seek a second for that.
Can we have some wording, please?
Currently writing them.
You happy with that?
Leave that suffice, yes.
You wish to speak any further to it?
No, you should.
I'll speak to it. There are all sorts of merits of discussion in communities around whether it should be a 50-metre pool or whether it should be repurposed. There are huge arguments, and I've even heard some of them from a unlikely source this morning, but they are points of view. And they are discussions that could, if you repair the roof and strengthen the walls to accommodate it, that will also trigger some compliance standards. But that leaves options open. And so I would support absolutely that Martin should have a swimming pool. Any other speakers to it? Councillor Duncan, Councillor Taugeti, Councillor Duncan.
I would like to speak in support, in as much as I think that it's always been our discussion that Martin should have a pool, and that it uses its pool, and the community has submitted quite strongly on support for the pool. But I think we also have to be sensible. I don't, it's an old fashioned word. And the question of just a pure question of whether Martin should have a pool or not is not good enough. Our community need to know that it's cost effective and actually affordable, because we've got to be real with our ratepayers' money. So yes, I absolutely support the fact that we need the pool, but we need to be smart about it.
Councillor Taugeti, you're speaking in favour.
I am, your worship.
We've already had 3 speakers in favour. If I've got to be careful to stick to rules here.
Okay, well, I'm happy to withhold my comments.
Any speakers against?
I will speak against it, only because I think it preempts our decisions. It just seems to me like the way that's worded is that it's that site, that option, so all these other options that we've got there, a new site somewhere else, all goes off the table. I think better word that we commit to swim centre and Martin facility in Martin, rather than, maybe there is it just seems to preempt that we're just sticking with the one site, so it takes out a few of those other options already. Only reason why.
Thank you. Right, a reply?
I could see from Councillor Moore how that could be perceived, although given the context of the report, I don't believe that that's quite the case. But I don't think it negates any of the other decisions that are yet to be made. So I still stand by the recommendation, and I think Councillor Duncan's comments are valid. But I think this first recommendation enables the subsequent recommendations to follow suit. We need to make these decisions in some form of sequence. So by saying we're not going to close the pool, is the logical thing to start with, and then move on to subsequent decision making from there.
I'll put that to now to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Go. Thank you, councillor Moore. I'll cut to the chase here. I will move that option 2, the midterm enhancements as described in the stage 2 report from Create Architects and Engineers be adopted.
Your worship, just option 1B.
Which include to do 2, you've got to do 1A and 1B.
No, so option 2 is the midterm. It was quite a substantial amount. I think the one you might refer to would be 1B, where it's more than just status quo.
Yeah, sorry, I agree. Yeah, sorry, I agree. Thank you. And speaking to this would allow, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this would allow the structure to be strengthened, the roof for all beams replaced, the insulation being addressed, those issues, and a new style, I would say perspex, but it's not perspex, it's a special modern roofing material that lets sunlight in and effectively heats the pool to be put in place. The direct costs for that, without allowing for contingencies, sits at about just over 2 million. Yeah. Sits at just over $2 million. We have had a funder who has prepared to fund that. Would not come at a ratepayer cost. There would be some additional costs in terms of compliance with the rest of the building. That would not preclude repurposing the pool in shape and layout, and whether it was a 50-metre pool or a 25-metre pool plus other pools, that would all still be potentially on the table. I think that has been a huge offer, and we have that in writing as an offer from the community. So I would move that, looking for a seconder to that.
Second is looking to second before you speak to it.
Sorry. Thank you very much. I take any other questions or speakers? Councillor Sharon.
Does that contribute, so we're going to accept that we've got shortfalls in sanitary with option 2? Does that contravene our dangerous, effective and unsanitary buildings policy? Which under 3.4, an unsanitary building is offensive or likely to be injurious to health because of how it is situated or it is in a state of disrepair, as insufficient or defective provisions against moisture penetration, so as to cause dampness in the building or any adjoining buildings.
So in terms of the changing rooms and so on, that would subsequently be a separate conversation that council would have.
Your worship, if I can add to that, if I may. We need a decision first, then there are some uncertainties, and I'm thinking of building consent requirements, things like that we still have to tick off. And I would imagine would need to come back and say this is where all of it falls. But at least this will give us clear direction of where we need to go next.
Okay. Yeah, I should, in terms of honesty and transparency, because the writing an offer, the offer has also been made. So if you can do this and do it in a timely manner and to budget, or that the funder will consider further funding. So that's what has been put in writing.
Where could we throw in an avenue of community funding? Still get back to the sense of community. People want it. I know that this is a generous offer, but I think it's only one
Yeah.
organisation or person. I still want that, Martin community to say, we want this pool.
And
And I know, yeah, sorry.
I'll, as a writer reply, I'll address the further speaker.
Thank you, Worship, speaking in favour of the motion, but also noting that if you read the report that we've seen, and there was that earlier 200 odd page report that we looked at before prior going into our workshops to discuss this matter, all of the options, this one in particular, create the ability to stage and to add to without hampering anything that may happen in the future. And that's the key thing that we've got to consider, that if we stage the approach of what we do, we can address some of the other shortcomings as indicated from Councillor Charlotte. And I think the important bit is when and if this decision is to be made and voted and agreed to, we can then present that to the community and say, this is the option that we're seeking to do. However, it has some shortcomings. And that is perhaps an opportunity where our community may get on board and go, well, if you're in there and you're a bit short, could we fundraise a little bit extra so you can do that while you're in there, which would make sense. But we can only do what we can do at our end to facilitate that option. So I agree with what Councillor Morn is saying, and I think it's a great approach. So speaking in favour of the motion.
Councillor Loudon.
Just on the funding, I had a look at the Lotteries Commission and I felt that possibly that there's funding available through there, or a case could be made through there.
Thank you. So are you speaking in favour or is that a comment?
No, I was just, however, I would like to speak in favour of.
Thank you.
I'd like to put some more if I could.
Any other speakers against? Or I go to writer reply. In terms of writer reply, Councillor Wilson has said it almost exactly as I was going to say it. I think that there's nothing from the funder that would preclude us trying to seek funding elsewhere. And we should absolutely go through those processes. And we could well say, in terms of the sanitary conditions around the changing rooms, to our commercial teams within the district, we will find ways of providing the materials. Could you provide some labour? Could you do this? Could the painters provide the expertise and so on? So all sorts of things are in that space. And that is, I think, why the funder has said that they will deal with the major structural issues and see where it goes to from there. There will be electrical upgrades, and I'm sure that I can go to other people and say, you know, would you like a part of this, be part of it in some shape or form? We have to be careful, and because we are as councillors and myself, you're going to be in an electing type position. So whatever you do, you'd be advised to go as a council to communities, rather than individual people saying, this is what I want. So that's just a little bit of a word of advice. But I believe that that is absolutely feasible. I think we should be making applications wherever we can. And if I look back on other major fundraising, for instance, when Te Matapihi was built, yes, there were applications all over the place. Yes, the community did up a house, put it on the market and sold it and made considerable money. Hunter will have shown the way really in terms of this sort of community buyer. And I think the same approach is possible here. But this puts us on a path to say that we believe that the pool is important to us as a community and should be regarded as such. And I think the offer that has been made is a substantial offer that any community would love. I now must put it to the vote. For those in favour, those against, carried. Thank you very much. I will talk with Arno with Create and the funders and look at that. But the. Yeah.
No, it's just a any questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And your worship is the second part of the discussion that I'm just keen. I've made a copy of a straw man of what a timeline could look like, but I do think because there is, and we would all want it to be open as soon as we can, but I think at some point we need to record something and then work from there. We can always try and reduce it or whatever, but I think it's important that we have an open discussion. So I'll hand them out quickly. If you.
Thank you.
And I know that, timelines for local government work are difficult. We're not in the commercial world. And as such, but to my mind, you've always got to have a target. And you should always try and say, how can we make this happen expediently? And we'll work towards it.
Put under fast track legislation.
By the way, I will never be disclosing the name of the funder. That is a requirement. Funder wants no public recognition whatsoever. But I would like to move a motion to say that council would accept the offer of outside funding and without recognition. So I will move, seconded Councillor Wilson, that council looks to accept the offer of outside funding that has been made. And I can't put it in writing to give you a copy of it, or I can, but if it's got to be redacted as to the circumstances of the company concerned. Thank you very much. Moving to.
We need a
We're going to vote on
once we put it up on screen.
Right, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Very, thank you very much.
Your worship, can Arno just briefly go over these?
Yes,
If that'll be helpful. So what we've done is now we have a decision, but we have to finalize the scope. So what that means is when I spoke to the engineer, he said, yep, we can do certain things before other things, but we need to think about it carefully. So we would step through that now to say, decision has been made, what bits can we do now and what can follow later? He was saying, there are some design things we have to take into consideration. If you put a new roof on with better insulation, but you don't fix the HVAC, are you going to have lots of condensation and damage to the new stuff? So in 3 years' time, that's damage you have to replace. So we need to think about that. Also, we need to speak to the building consent office to figure out what they would require from us. So then we can start the design. There's some additional, so we've given that only 2 weeks to do that. On-site investigation work that we still need to complete, so they're not sure what's in the block work. So the structural strengthening, we need to finish those off, so that's only 2 weeks to do that. The documentation to go to tender is really the big portion of the work, and I thought I would just bullet point them so you have a better idea of what that means. It is an enormous amount of work that we have to put together every time we go to tender, because we need to describe in detail to the contractors what they need to price for. So it is a really tricky process, and it is dependent on the actual design of what we want. So all of that, 10 weeks to get that done. Then we have to submit the building consent. It is risky to do the tender process while you're applying for the building consent because you're not sure what the building consent will tell you have to add. If you then commit before that's done, you're open to all kinds of variations at who knows what price. So generally what happens is the approved building consent becomes part of the tender documentation. So 6 weeks for that, which again is tight. Then we got to finalize what we have to go to the market. We then go to the market for 4 weeks. There's always tags and things to clarify. We evaluate, we score, and we bring to council or tenders board, whichever is quicker. But we reckon end of November, we would be able to engage a contractor. Because of the break, December, January, we're not sure when they would establish site. Conservatively, it will be difficult for them to establish site and then leave things there over the December break. Potentially early in the new year, and then 4 to 6 months to construct. So that's kind of where we are with it.
Will this be public information shortly or not?
Yeah. Public information, because we're in an open meeting, we've discussed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Arno, for this. This, I don't believe, should come as a surprise to any of the councils sitting around the table, that having now made a decision, or any of the decision was going to involve this level of timeframe to a certain extent, to meet our requirements. I do think we should be very open and honest and realistic with our communities, that the old story is fools rush in. We need to tread carefully through this process to achieve the results that we want to achieve for the long-term vision of the facility. And again, do not rush in or rush your process if you're going to trip yourself up down the long line. This is, I note, as an estimated timelines. It's a very early stage of indication, indicative timelines. Potential for this to shift by weeks is real, and we should accept that and understand that. Not that we want that, but we need to accept that it is a possibility.
Yeah, I think that we could shorten it up by weeks. You're absolutely correct.
I know that's what you'd be desiring for your worship. Let's not take a bet each way on that.
Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Duncan.
So obviously the timeline's important to our generous funder.
Yes, it is.
So is that timeline going to be approved by him?
One of the things the funder has said is the funder will fund, but wants to see it done in a timely manner. And they've been quite explicit around that. So I envisage there'll be meetings between Arno, myself and the funder on a fairly regular basis, and will be held to account.
Okay.
And council will be advised, and maybe there is a way that we can set up within Big Tin Can a process that keeps councillors up to date. So where it's at. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, I don't know whether I missed something, but estimated completion in 4 months, which is early June. Does this mean that we'll be opening the pool in early June if it's completed? Or are we still sticking to our summer season?
That's a separate discussion in its own right.
It's June 2026.
Oh, 2026. So early June 2026. So yeah, but it's, so we're still looking at a summer season versus a whole year round opening?
That is the status quo. If council was going to change that.
So in actual fact, there is no rush. It could be the 26th of August, and we'd still be in time for the summer season.
Next one.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
I take your point.
Yeah.
Summer season is October.
There you go.
This timeline is for the option 1B.
New ones.
This was for, but we didn't do it specifically on the option. I just said to Arno to talk to Create and get a bit of a feel for them about the process, whichever option you chose.
Would they not all be quite different in length of the options, or is it one size fits all?
No, it could have been, but if you decided to build a new facility somewhere completely different, then it's very different. Or if you've chosen to do the whole consolidated plan, that would have been very different. This is just for a repair or a option 1A or 1B.
Yeah. The funder has been quite explicit, and they have gone through all of the things and said, and that they will replace the roof and they will strengthen the walls, etc. All that, and they've ticked all the different boxes and said they will fund this, and this. And if that happens, come back and talk to us.
Something else I think is helpful that we've discussed is if there is spillover that is not covered by the generous funder, that we would ask that we come back to council and describe how we would pay for that.
Correct.
So that you are happy with whatever we propose to use, whatever mechanism we propose.
Yeah.
There's existing money in the budget already, which we identified. So of course that would be used as part of it.
We should just second, does this need to be accepted as a document?
That's a good.
And as such as recorded, so that we can say this advice was given to us?
So if you would like to move that the table document prepared regarding the table document regarding timeframes.
Estimated time.
Estimated timeframes
Lines.
Timelines.
that are excessive. Councillor Loudon.
Well, with money being available in the existing budget, are you suggesting that the Barton Streetscape funding is available for the pool? Or
And there is a tag budget with money to the pool available. Circa just a little under 300,000.
That it had already programmed to replace the roof as part of the long-term plan and some of the operational costs, which we haven't been meeting. So it's existing budget.
One of the things that the report indicated was that if you replace it and take the extra to replace it with this type of roofing material, it could give you an advantage in terms of extending the season. Because it's warmer.
Figure that out.
Right. You wish to move the table document?
Yes.
I'll second. And I'll let Councillor Duncan second if like. Okay. Do you wish to speak to it?
I believe it's required, Your Worship.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against carried. Thank you very much. Moving to item 11, the reports for information. And Mr. Bernardi, back in the hot seat again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is the monthly update on the important projects. We will start off, and as we do every month, I'll just step through them and then open it up for questions. So the first one is just the Martin Courts wastewater centralisation, and still we are in the process of gathering information on that land to figure out if it's sufficient, if there's enough of it. All of these wastewater projects at the moment are subject to the change in standards or potential change in standards. So we don't want to rush through it and make decisions too early. We want to see what happens in that space and then bring something back to council if possible.
So I'll take any questions around 2.1 marketable wastewater program. Right.
Yeah.
Simon.
Just a clarification, I'm just a little bit confused. At 2.3, you're talking about the proposed new standards.
Yeah.
And there's an option for 100% disposal to land. And then at 2.6, the land we have under current design flows is capable of taking 65%. So the 65 and 100% aren't linked, are they? So the 65% of our current flow could be taken up on that land if it's 100% of that. You know what I mean?
I know it's a really, well, that's
a little bit
so
confusing.
what that means is we do not have enough land for the 100% to land option.
Right.
And what we will do when we evaluate all the options is we'll come back to council and say, if you want to go for the 100% to land option, we will need to purchase more land, this much more land, and we think the cost will be this much.
Ratner.
So Ratna is similar. We are really waiting for the consent hearing to come up. We're not sure when it'll be. Again, this is subject to those standards. Yeah, so things are a little bit in the holding pattern with this one.
Questions around Ratner?
Oh, just a pre-hearing meeting, how did that go? Was that sort of junior or?
We got 3 submitters to this. The one submitter is a neighbour, so they are in support. They have some concerns, which I think is realistic. The other two were very set in what they wanted and were not prepared to budge at all. So it'll have to go to full hearing.
Yeah, and just bear in mind that the review of the RMA, that also is indicated within that review process that non-affected parties may be exempted in terms of process. So the right of someone, for instance, from Auckland or Palmerston North as a non-affected party to be parts of these processes may well change.
Just a question, and I'll leave it quite open and I know it's a difficult one to answer. Looking at this process and perhaps reading between the lines, are we looking at a project that is potentially under financial strain or likely to be given our current budgets?
Is that the Ratner one?
The Ratner one in specific, because I'm looking at the way this is written and having been on council for some time and see this project evolve, my head tells me this has potentially got some financial implications coming around the corner.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. There's a long time span from the report we brought to council and the approvals that we received to where we are now.
There's a potential. Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Martin, water strategy.
Thank you. Yep, Martin, water strategy. I think the most important thing is just we're in the process now of finalising the contract work, the wording of the warranty and all those things. And then from there onwards, they can start ordering and we can start construction. Councillor Darby.
Just interested, I had it in my mind that this project was due to be completed in August. Now we've gone out to October and November. Yeah, is there, we were a little bit public about that August thing. I mean, I think it was probably about now originally, and yeah, so if you got any comment or
Yes, absolutely. If I may, through you, Your Worship, we added that in because it is important to notify that things are moving on. The negotiation around the contract and finalising the contract and the warranty is more complex than we thought. It's taking longer than we thought. What we don't want to do is expose council to unreasonable risk. We're not gonna just accept things to make it go quicker. We would rather say it has to take longer, but we have to de-risk it. So that is definitely taking longer than expected.
Could you have a discussion share the discussion around difficulties live with, first of all, with me and potentially council?
Yeah, it's around the contract conditions and what they look like, and also around the difference of what was proposed originally and where we are now. So if they committed to things originally and now it's added in, then we disagree with that. We think it should still be included. So it's those technical things about what is in, what is out, what is already.
Look,
I see. Yeah.
I'll reshape the question to include the chair of assets and I to be briefed around where those discussions are.
Yeah,
I think we'll probably leave it there at the moment.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to you?
Absolutely, Your Worship. I had similar concerns.
Where are we up to after Martin's water strategy?
Community facilities. And we'll pass it on to Ishmael.
Martin offices, yes, we've broken it down into two separate projects. One is the EOC and the Martin offices. For the EOC, we are expecting the planning report to come sometime next week. Urban design review, we've just had a first cut review yesterday. So that should come back to council next month. So the gist of it is it's pretty much landed on what we had originally proposed. I think what we were looking at from the urban design review was where the EOC could be positioned on site. And I think they've also located where we had originally proposed. It's on the green plot there. So that's one of the ideal options that they've picked. So it's pretty much what we have done so far, but we will again have a discussion internally and bring it back to council. We've also gone ahead and engaged the whole design consultancy with Team Architects, who's the nominated architects for the whole project as well. We are going through the contract for the soil contamination and the geotechnical ones. I think because we're trying to use a new format, so there's a bit of going back and forth with it. I think there's another meeting scheduled with, I know, on Monday as well, so we should tidy that up. Once we have that, I think we should start putting in timelines and looking at going ahead and designing it. As for the design, we already have a clear-cut footprint of this building. So typically what the designers are doing is only solving structural, plumbing, electrical, and all of that based on this geotechnical report that we're going to get.
Questions?
Quickly, sorry. So, the design will be pretty much exactly replicating what Rupa have done?
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And for the Martin offices, yes, we'd gone through a tender process. We had identified a contractor, but because there was the price wasn't taken into consideration in the evaluation, what we have done is now we've identified the contractor, but we're working with them. We've given them a budget now because they were in the tender, because we had two different footprints and all that, because we had originally identified a 1,500 square meter building. But then because Horizons came in, that number went up and all that. So there was two different footprints, but the budget remained same. So we've gone back and told them that this is your budget, and come back and tell us what we can fit in. And we're also trying to understand if Horizons are a part of this or not. So if that decision is made, then we can reduce that footprint and start looking at it.
What I'd like to see is a council determination decision around Horizons being in or out. And can I have some advice from the chief executive whether it would be appropriate for me to put a motion on the table ahead of any advice from council, from staff?
Can I just suggest that I've got an opportunity to talk to the chief executive tomorrow, and I will get an indication from him, and then if that doesn't meet, then we can bring it back to next month to get what you're looking for.
Yeah, so we'll bring it back next month. So I'll hold your question, Councillor Loudon. My view is this is our council decision, irrespective of the wishes of and possible desire that gets weighed up as part of our decision. But I'd like to see staff as an action that council determine whether we will allocate space for Horizons to put this matter to bed. And council staff can think about what papers or process would be required to get to that point for the next council meeting.
And comment?
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I just feel that in the community that it's not clear what we're going to look like in 5 years' time, maybe well, it's 10. And so that lends to question marks in the community about what we're doing here. And so if we preclude or include Horizons here, that impacts that decision and where we sit. Yes.
And I absolutely see that as part of my thinking as well. And that's why, but I want some definitive positions.
Could I just answer that through you, Chair, to Councillor Dalgety? As you will be aware, myself, the Mayor and Councillor Lambert have been in a lot of engagement and pre-engagement with Ishra and the council team as delegated by council to go through this process and to step through. All of our conversations that have been had have had that thought in mind. What does the future look like? How do we design for, how do we make sure that we can perhaps be modular or build in such a way that we can add to So that has very much formed part of what our discussions have been with Ishwar and his thinking and his design and his discussions with the architect to enable us to actually be a little bit nimble in that space with that thought in mind. What does the future look like? We don't know, but we're designing our process and our thoughts around what they could possibly be. So perhaps that gives you some insight as to what the thinking's been.
Thank you. I just did want us to keep moving on a bit. Type of grandstand.
Yeah. IIP Grandstand, we've had 2 meetings with the community. On the second meeting, I think we've kind of briefed the community on where we have got to with the sort of spending, what sort of work staff have done on that space. So we've given them all of that information. As for council, we whatever we've projected so far is basically we're just doing the seismic work, and that is just enough with this available funding at this moment. And that doesn't include the occupying the lower space. That's one part of it. The other part is where the community absolutely wants that lower level to be used. So we've kind of told them that anything beyond that seismic work, the budget that we have has to be funded by the community. So we've told them what that work entails, if it has to be designed, if they have to get an architect engaged, find a builder, do a funding process, come with that funding. We've also given them an indicative timeline of where this leads to. So we're staring at sometime mid to end of 2027. So that is if the community funds it and we do all of this together. So there's 2 decisions to make. One is if we're doing this, the whole lot, whether we're doing it together, or will the council make a decision to go ahead with the seismic strengthening work first and then pass it back to the community to the rest. The thing here is if we decide to do the seismic work first, the moment we touch that building and go for a building consent, the lower level is off limits. But if we wait for the community to do it, at least until that point, the community can still use that building. But the other thing is if we wait for 2 years, the 700 that we have at the moment will not be 700 by the time in the next 2 years. So there's a whole lot of moving parts here. So if we decide, if the council decides to wait for the 2 years, then anything beyond that 700 will become part of community funding. So
the community absolutely understand the position with regard to this, and what has been enlightening is that the community response has been, to my ears, has been, it is difficult for us to go and raise money. It is easier for us to say we will be part of the process of rebuild and painting and things in terms of fundraising, in much the same way that Hunterville has taken an approach. So I'm reasonably buoyant around the last meetings that we've had. Any specific questions, Councillor Charlotte?
Knowing that the building requires seismic strengthening, if we don't go ahead and do it, can they still use the building? Is that a risk to us?
They can still use the building,
even though we know,
even though it's not seismic
Got
strength.
signage.
You're in a building that is earthquake prone right now.
yeah, I suppose.
Look, I want to move us on. Taipi Town Hall.
We have the decision from the council to go ahead and proceed with the option where we retain the front 2-story structure, but demolish the hall and the stage and put in a new building. And subsequently, we've had a meeting with the user group just to go through what is and what is not. And I think the community has been very reasonable in that discussions. So now what we've given it back to Maycroft to put this into a drawing and then come back and tell us what is in, what is out, if there's any movement in costs. So they will evaluate and come back to us before we go back to the user group.
Thank you, Councillor Wong.
Just one request that was asked for and taken on board by Maycroft was a kitchen facility at the towards the rear of the auditorium part on the car park side. Mr. Bernardi suggested that the council chambers, which was a meeting room, could have had a servery to the rear of the auditorium like the Te Matahi PE, which perhaps I thought was a sensible suggestion for Mr. Benedict. But the feedback from Maycroft was that they are very different purposes. In a meeting room would be better off having acoustic walls and softer furnishings. But if it comes to excessive cost, I think a meeting room is better if it had perhaps just the kitchen facilities there that were maybe could be a sliding cover to give some semblance of stability. But I thought they were perhaps a bit harsh in rejecting it. But if they come back with an excessive cost, that should be looked at. But it's not listed on this list of what was mentioned at the.
Councillor, can we leave that with you?
Yeah.
As Councillor Dalgety.
Just for clarity, please, because I haven't been able to find it anywhere. The library, is that going or staying?
Library is staying, that's part of the front two-story structure. So it's only the hall and the stage that's being demolished and rebuilt.
Yeah, so even though it's not pretty or historic.
It's got the frontage, right? So because it's part of the main street.
Yeah.
So that whole structure stays.
Okay, thank you.
Real Councillor Duncan.
No.
All right.
Your worship, can I just make one comment on that? So Maycroft's going to go back to see if those requirements that we had with that user group is still affordable. I just want to remind councillors, when we get to a point where we now start looking at drawings and what things look, it comes back here first. For you to have a look and for you to approve, for you to tell us continue, before we will share that with anybody else.
Thank you. I think we can skip the Martin Swim.
There's not much going on in that.
Thank you for those who have recently joined us online. Scott's Ferry.
So that one I updated was part of the action, so
Yep.
the MOU is well underway.
And just, I have one in terms of miscellaneous. We received an abatement notice. The date for the first abatement notice was today's date.
30th, yeah.
Are we complying with the item?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you for the question. Maybe just for a bit of feedback, it was specific to E. coli levels on the discharge, it's too high. And we had to install new UV units at Hunterville and at Mangaweka. The deadline for the one is today, so that's installed. We can only get it commissioned on the 8th, but we have notified Horizon roughly.
And therefore will comply easily with the 30th of June for Mangaweka.
Yes, correct.
Councillor Sharlin.
Just a point of clarification with the Scott's Ferry. It says the responsibilities and conditions when the council-owned tractor will be used in conjunction with a pump owned by the local farmer. Does the local farmer own the pump? Oh, he does. Oh, sorry, I thought it was Erasmus.
No, they should.
Yeah, that's the shovel. Projects report being received. Mover, Councillor Duncan, you prepared to do that? Councillor Sharlin seconding. Councillor Duncan and Sharlin, those in favour? Aye. To my eye. Thank you. That takes us to item number 12, the minutes from committees. I'm hoping that somebody would receive both as a block. Councillor Morn moving, Councillor Wilson seconding, those in favour? Aye, have you got that? Councillor Morn, Councillor Wilson. Recommendations from committees, 13.1, adoption of the Treasury Management Policy. Recommendation here, who's taking us through that? It would be a Treasury person, wouldn't it?
It would be, wouldn't it, through the chair? So thank you. I think most people have seen this policy. It's been through the Finance Performance Committee and also Risk and Insurance. And we've had Miles O'Connor here to present as well on this policy. There was a few tweaks that we had to make to it. Under the full council, a bullet point approves one of council's responsibility approving overall borrowing limits on an annual basis. and that's through your long-term plan and annual planning process that have been admitted. And then we just had under manager finance and partnerships and equally under manager financial services, just some cover if I'm out of the office, the business keeps going. And that's really important as well. And other than that, it was just a few grammatical errors and formatting. So I'm really happy with this policy. I've probably replicated this policy. This will probably be my 4th time now. Oh.
Thank you. Would somebody like?
Ready to move?
Thank you. Councillor Loudon, if you want to think for a second. Any discussion or put it to vote?
Yeah, just one thing, you say there's a few grammar on page 73, procedures for financial market transactions, unless that's a new term, I think the T's missing.
Okay, thank you.
As not a financial person, I thought maybe it's a new term that is.
I promise you it's not, but I'll skip that one. Thank you.
If you read all this.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, you telling me you don't?
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, those against? Carried. Recommendation of Martin Community Committee 13.2. That council confirms the 3 new roads be known as Barton Street as the main road and Harveston Street and Hegland Street. First of all, can somebody receive the recommendation? Councillor Morn and Councillor Charland receiving, so it's Morn and Charland. And would somebody like to move the recommendation here?
Happy to move as I attended the Martin Community Committee meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Morn, you second it? You wish to speak to it?
No, Your Worship. Oh, well, yes, actually just to reaffirm that it was a discussion that was held at the Martin Community Committee meeting. There was some discussion around it and clarities sought, and that they, on the basis of that, they were happy to move the recommendation through to council.
Just a quick question. How did they get their names? Any reason?
Harveston is the name of the subdivision, Ben Street. Barton Street is a continuation of Barton Street, which already exists. And Hegland Street is the name of the original landowners, was Mr. Hegland, who lived up on Mill Street, and the house is still there, although no longer in the Hegland family. But that was the name of the original farmhouse that went back through into that.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Next recommendation, Bulls Community Committee. Could somebody receive it? Thank you, Councillor Charland. And would look for your co-conspirator, but we'll take someone else seconding. Thank you, Councillor Lambert. This is to receive. And this one needs an approve or does not approve. The request to create a public GIS map layers for the community committees. And that this includes the number of households and the boundary lines. And I will ask the question, approximate cost to council to comply with this.
Yeah, through you, Chair. There's no cost to comply with this. The layer is already available. We just need to publish it publicly.
Would somebody like to move with either approving or does not approve the request? Councillor Charland, are you interested?
Yeah, I'll move that, Your Worship.
Seconded, Councillor Wilson.
Can we just confirm what they're moving, approved or does not?
And we presume you're approving. Thank you. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 14, public excluded. Would somebody like to move that we move into public excluded for the given reasons?
We'll just note Martin Pool's not required.
Yeah, sorry, I'll take that. But can we remove Martin Pool now? Would somebody like to move while it's happening? Councillor Loudon, was it Councillor Loudon? Moving. Was it a scratch or a seconding? Councillor you can multitask. Congratulations. Put it to the vote. Those in favour?
No.
Those against? Carried. For those online, Thank you very much for your attendance. It's been a full council meeting. We will take a 10-minute break before we move into public excluded. Thank you.